Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse. It is episode 249. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Bing-a-ring.
Connor's here too.
I'm back.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, you were here, you were gone last week.
Nice.
Nice.
Had to work.
Nice.
What are you doing?
I need you from the grocery store.
Alright, go. I already told you.
I love that happened. I barely finished introducing people. I haven't even said what the show is yet. The audience at home have heard Matt's wife. And even though it's a comic podcast yet. Well, I mean, the title gives it away a little bit, I suppose. Yeah, it's a DC Comics podcast. We get together, we talk about shows. And as we're coming up on our milestone 250th episode, I'd love to say that opening minute wasn't indicative of the quality that we bring to you on a weekly basis, but...
Kind of is.
Shambles!
So yes, we have DC Comics every week, the ones we've read, and coming up on this week's show, we got Batman the Detective issue 1, we got Superman 30, Wonder Woman 771, Batman Urban Legends issue 2, and Rorschach issue 7. So that's what's coming up on today's show, plus a little bit, well, say a little bit, it's just one news story that I have for people. Oh, Carter's got more. Okay, so Carter will tell us about something else. So that's what's coming up on the show this week. But we're going to start with our new tradition, which is looking at the ComiXology top 10 at the time.
This is not a tradition. You did it one time.
This is the third time.
Did I miss both the other times that you've remembered to do it?
I said this is the third time. You said there's been one. That implies you've missed one. So Carter's math is just off the ball right away here.
It's been a long week, let me tell you. I worked a 12-and-a-half-hour shift yesterday without expecting to.
I'm just gonna drink my cereal milk latte.
You have the disgusting sounding beverage. So it's not as depressing as last week's ComiXology top 10. This is on the UK ComiXology at the time of recording on a Saturday. Because last week there was literally one DC book in the top 10. It was dire stuff. There's a bit more in this one. Not number one though. Number one is Thor, issue 14. So
Thor's a good book right now.
Marvel takes that slot. Who's writing Thor right now?
Cates.
Yes, Donny Cates, and I think we're back to Nick Klein on art at the minute. They've been rotating art by art.
I'm behind because I forgot to pick up issue 7, and it's on back order still. So fun.
It's real good.
Yeah.
So do you have a stack of like 8 through 14?
I have 8 through 14 because I won't buy them until I read them. Until I read 7. So I'm still waiting on 7. Also still waiting on Savage Shores. So fun.
You're gonna love that.
Yes, I know. I see them to deliver it. Diamond.
Are you still waiting on your? Are you still waiting on your Hella Risen?
Don't get me started. I put that box in the garage. That ship has sailed.
Yeah. Well, it's not Diamond's fault in that case, I suppose. Oh no, because I hadn't transitioned yet. That was still Diamond.
That was well into the Diamond period still.
No, the problem with that one was they'd only ordered a couple at my shop, and I didn't have it on my list. So when I went to go pick it up, speculators had already come in and bought them out. Yeah. Because no one else was reading that book but me. And then stupid Punchline.
I don't think we can blame Punchline or even Tynan or
even speculators though. They're terrible.
Yeah, speculators. Yeah. Well, that was kind of the point I was getting to. It's their fault.
Yeah.
Number 2 is also a Marvel book, Daredevil issue 29.
That's a very good book.
Takes that slot. I can't argue with that. Number 3 is Batman the Detective issue 1. So new Bat book debuts highly. Number 4 is Rorschach issue 7. So you know, it's nice to see that.
Not surprised that that's pretty high.
Yeah. Number 5 is Superman 30. So nice little batch of DC books there. Number 6. Oh.
Did you look at these up on Tuesday?
No, he's doing them right now.
Right now. This is at the time of recording. So this is...
Gotcha.
So
It'd
DC...
be very impressive if he did it on Tuesday, given that I'm assuming that Thor and Daredevil didn't come out
till
Wednesday.
I forgot about those two, but I just, we talked about last week looking at Tuesday and seeing what the Marvel versus DC looks like.
If we did it on Tuesday, I guarantee you it would be more heavily skewed in favor of DC.
yeah, well, to be fair, the conversation last week was looking at it on Thursday, which the idea being it was a day after all the companies had their books come out. Matt's skewing it completely to sound like we were trying to like jig the numbers. So DC
ain't trying. Woo.
It was not as cooking the books as Matt is making it sound. It was, if anything, it was trying to make it more fair. That said, though, the fact that DC is still doing so well in the top 10 on Saturday is a good thing. It makes it more meaningful. So, good. Number 6 is Wolverine issue 11. That's it. Is that Percy still writing Wolverine?
I believe so.
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy 13 is at number 7. Number 8 is Wonder Woman 771. Number 9 is Children of the Atom issue 2. It's an X-Men thing, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say obviously. I mean, honestly, it's been such a long time since they've used Children of the Atom as a thing. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if there's some casual X-Men fans who wouldn't know that was an X-Men thing. And then number 10 is The Joker issue 2. So, 5 DC books there in the top 10.
Point. Are you not reading that?
No, I chose not to read it this week.
I can get behind that.
Price increase, or because like
No, I liked issue 1. This was purely a price choice.
Given that we know that the price increase was due to all the covers being cardstock, did they put the price up on the digital version as well?
They did. It's
that's shady.
It's the $5.99 variant of, because I mean it's like $4.79 UK price, but that's the $5.99.
That is bullshit.
Equivalent.
Yeah. I tell you, my shop wasn't happy about that. So.
Probably not. Well, a lot of customers probably wanted to cancel their orders as soon as they found out. So that is that. And just looking beyond the top 10 to see if there's anything particularly interesting sticking out. Not a lot of DC immediately after. There's a lot of trades popping up. Invincible's Compendium still doing really well.
They have all been on sale recently due to the Amazon show starting.
It does not surprise me. So that makes sense.
I may have partaken myself.
Only other notable DC stuff is that Batman Urban Legends is on the first page, and Batman Second Son digital chapter number 7 is also on the first page. As is American Vampire not second cycle, whatever it's called now, 1976. The current American Vampire book, the new issue.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah. So there you go. That is your stuff. Is there anything that's notably missing from DC? Because I read 5 books, right? Is there anything notably missing? No, I don't think so. That's everything that's major. Yeah. I was just in case there was something that was shockingly not even in the top 20 from DC that feel like it should have been.
Nothing that I can think of.
No, there was nothing. So cool. There you go. That's your ComiXology top 10 for the week. I know everyone enjoys it, except Matt and Connor, but everyone else enjoys it. So the one news story I have from this week is that we have a couple of Bat Family one-shots coming in July. This is the Batman Secret Files. And I was excited to discover this on Twitter, just mainly because the cover to the Huntress one is absolutely gorgeous. Stunning stuff. But this is basically a way to give some of the different Bat characters, because it's not the main family. This is, the two that we've got for July are Huntress and Signal. So that gives you kind of an idea of maybe who we're going to be focusing on here. So they're 40-page one-shots, focusing on a Bat Family. And when it comes to a character like Huntress, we don't necessarily have a ton of context for what she's doing in current continuity, so it's not necessarily a bad idea. And Signal with Outsiders not existing, at least in the same capacity as it did before. Again, what's his status quo right now? So it feels like that might be the purpose of these things. So, yeah, where's my creative teams on this? I'm sure they're in this article somewhere.
They are.
So, Batman and the Signal co-writer, Tony Patrick, is going solo with the Signal story, with Kristen Duss on the art. So
2 paragraphs later for the other one.
And then the second one shot, Mariko Tamaki is getting paired with David Lapham. Do we know who that is? Is that an artist we know?
Dave Lapham does sound familiar, but I don't know from where.
Yeah,
I don't recognize it immediately.
I have to admit, Tamaki being on the Huntress one shot is definitely encouraging.
He did the Stray Bullets books.
Okay, that's why. With Azarella.
Yeah.
Wait, no.
No, they were just him, I think.
That's right. That was 100
It's a
bullets.
creator-owned thing, but there's quite a lot of them.
Yeah.
Fairly well known.
Yeah. So that's something they're going to do for a little bit. So they're doing 2 in July, so I'd expect maybe 2 in August. Maybe I don't know how long they're going to keep this going, but I imagine this will be 3 or 4 months of some one-shots.
Interestingly, it does state that they are a monthly series, is the way that DC actually described it. But the first 2 issues are both in July. Seems a weird choice. I don't know if they're just doubling up on the first month and then after that.
Yeah, because it's not like they're listed as issue 1, issue 2. They're just both one-shots. So
yeah, it's they've all got they're all Batman Secret Files :
yeah.
So the Signal, Huntress, etc. Whatever the rest are.
I suspect, maybe it'll be 1 a month after the first 2. I think the word ongoing is technically used in this article. I don't know if it's an ongoing book in the way that we typically think of it ongoing. I think it just means, there's a set amount of these planned, but because they don't have to solicit it like a regular series where it's got ongoing, orders,
Yes.
presumably, they don't have to specify anything. So it's just like, they may have 7 of these planned, but we won't know until they stop doing them, basically.
Yeah, we'll wait and see.
Because at the very least, I assume they're going to run out of characters unless they start doing like Huntress issue 2 in like 6 months or something.
They might. You never know.
There's a lot of Bat characters.
It really is, especially ones that don't have books.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair. I can't argue with that.
You can do a Tim one. You can do a spoiler one.
We know we've got an announcement coming from Tom Taylor next week.
Oh, this was on.
He's teased it's to do with Tim Drake.
This was on Twitter, wasn't it?
Yeah, originally it was supposed to be announced yesterday, but DC decided to push it to Wednesday for some reason. We could have had Tom Taylor news to be talking about right now, but instead we're talking about this.
Do you know, it's nice after he's doing such a great job with Dick Grayson that he's going to the inferior Robin and giving him a little bit of a boost. That's really sweet of him.
No,
really nice.
Damien's getting his own book. It's fine.
Very charitable.
Inferior Robin, and then I said, yeah.
Very charitable of Tom Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's giving a boy what he deserves.
Yes. And after Jason Todd's even getting quite a good ongoing story right now, this was Tim deserves a little bit of love. So was that the other thing? Yeah, that was the second.
It wasn't actually. That just
okay.
I remembered that as we said this. The other thing was the Batman Catwoman special, which I'm assuming you guys talked about last week.
Possibly. Remind me.
There is a one-shot interlude issue of that series coming in July.
Oh, I don't think we did talk about this actually. Maybe this dropped after the news, or I didn't see it.
Might have done. I don't know when exactly it dropped, but basically, yeah, it just says a interlude one-shot issue. It will be John Paul Leon on the art. That's what the actual update for today is.
That's good news because I like that artist, and I was just about to suggest. I guess this is just to give Man a month break to get caught up.
Definitely, yeah.
That's a good artist though. So,
it is. I'm looking if it tells us what it is. One-shot issue traces the life of Selena Kyle from her earliest days to her entry into the criminal underworld, and reveals that Bruce was actually a presence in her life all along.
Oh no!
I hate that last part.
Yes, some great romances are destined to be.
I hope that last part's overselling it because I hate that. But I don't like that artist.
He's very good. Yes.
And it being a Selena backstory thing is fine, just because it has been a Selena book through and through. This is about her more than it is about Batman. So cool. All right, well, there you go. That was news. Yeah, well, that was fairly painless. Brisk. Top 10 segment was in there. We're only hitting 15 minutes. This might even be a short show. It probably won't be, but it could be a short show.
Don't tell me what's possible.
Would you rather I tell you what's not possible?
No, never tell me the odds.
Both are equally long lists, and I'd rather we didn't do them.
Coming up on next week's show, Peter's top 500 not possible things. I love the idea of using not possible instead of saying impossible just to piss people off because I know it's going to upset everyone. In fact, I can see Connor seething behind the eyes right now.
I really don't. I don't give a shit.
Well, it would normally, but he's too tired. But normally that would really upset him. So there you go.
It's probably true.
That's basically the news for the week. Just to remind everyone, obviously we have episode 250 coming next week. We're recording the top 50 results. Everyone who voted in the top 50 DC characters, we're recording that the day after we record next week's episode. So that will be up in the day or two after the next episode goes out. Yeah,
It'll be sometime between episode 250 and 251.
Well, I just hesitated there because if you're on YouTube or you're interested in watching it on YouTube, it will premiere as a live event, effectively. And people can chat along with the results coming out. But, if you just listen to the audio feed, that's cool. It'll be up after it airs there, pretty much as soon as it's done. So that is the plan. So just to remind everyone that's coming. So there you go. All right, we can talk about books. Good. Get to it.
That's what we're here for.
Well, I say that because, this is the first time we've made it to books in under 20 minutes in months, probably, at this point.
Yeah, let's make the most of it because we've got solicits next week.
We do have solicits next week. And I think the only reason why I'm letting this slide and not forcing some nonsense talk before we get to it is because I am here on 2.5 hours sleep. So as nice and streamlined as we can make this would be just nice for me this week.
So, Connor, tell us about Riverdale.
Oh, it's the worst. I love it. It's so bad. It's so bad. But it gives me an excuse to have a couple of drinks every evening after work. And when you get in from work at 2 or 3 a.m., it's nice just to kick back, have a drink, and watch some god-awful TV.
Yeah.
I even know what
they should be uploading the next season soon on Netflix. So
yeah, I think there's 5 up there at the minute.
Yeah. So
I'm
just you wait till Griffins and Gargoyles, my friend.
Look, I've got some drinks to try. Probably try one tonight. I've got some ideas, and gonna have fun with it.
Well, I don't know what possesses someone to go back and continue Riverdale from.
I started again as well.
You started again?
I did.
You rewatched season 1?
We watched season 1 as it aired. But I was like, I don't really remember season 1. I was like, I'm gonna have to do it properly.
Connor's just I went back to the start too.
I'm easing myself in.
But it makes no sense anyway. It doesn't matter. Continuity is irrelevant in that show.
Sorry.
No. The continuity matters. It matters too much, you could say.
Carl's very concerned. I think he's having tech issues.
There was a random tab started making noises. Basically, it's snooker season. The World Championship just started today, and I had apparently left the game from earlier, that tab open, when it finished, and the next game has just started. So there was they do almost like boxing style announcers when they do the introductions, where they bring them out to the arena and stuff, and that just happened very loudly in my ear without I was not expecting it.
I really hope that
they have intro music,
Intro music. I really hope they should come out. I hope they come out in the what should we call them? The boxing, not cloak.
The robes or the flags,
robe. Yes,
whatever
the
they
robe.
want to use.
Yes, I was imagining snooker players coming out with that on with the hood up,
No, it's Ronnie O'Sullivan. So all I heard was Oasis just blasting into my ear.
Don't look back in anger. I heard you say. I don't know if that's a song. I don't know if that's a song he uses, but
I don't think it is. I can't. It was only like a 5-second snippet. I don't think it was that.
I bet it's one of the famous ones that people know, though.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
No question. No. I fell in love with the Mighty Ducks TV show. I'm up to date on that now. We watched the first episode for review at the start of the week, and episode 4 came out yesterday, and I watched it. It was.
I'm waiting for it to all drop.
It is
I certainly
heartwarming.
understand the appeal, even if it's not for me. But I get it. It's well made, and Matt will love it.
Yeah, Matt. See that the first 5 seconds when you hear the theme sort of come in and the soundtrack, you're going to feel a little flutter, and you're going to be into it.
You act like I don't watch the Mighty Ducks movies every year.
Well, that's why I'm telling you. You're going to feel things. You're going to be like,
Matt's
hey.
going to love it.
Yeah, all this hockey talk, slap shots, and all sorts.
Deeks and toe drags and
Pete's learning the lingo so he can understand what me and Matt start talking.
Hey, nights are on a tear.
Yeah, it's got a
I-
good week or two.
Yeah, got my Mark Stone shirt finally. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, yep.
Now, real hockey's boring, but Mighty Ducks is great. So, so
Books.
Yes, books.
You get bit by my own snake there.
Yeah, this was your fault, Matt. I was ready to go at the books, and you were like, Riverdale!
Well, just I wanted to see you die a little bit inside. You know?
Do you know what? Yes, but here's the thing, Matt. When you try to do that to troll me, my response to that is to make it last forever, because then it trolls you.
He's not wrong.
It's a vicious cycle. Alright, let's talk about DC comic books. Batman the Detective, issue 1, Tom Taylor, writing with Andy Kubert on the art. Or Kubert. Does he like a Kubert or a Kubert? What does he prefer?
I've always heard Kubert.
It's what I tend to lean towards, but I don't know if it's correct.
I'm going to call him Kubert, just to be different.
Stupid.
I love the idea of going up to celebrities and pronouncing their name in an intentional way that no one has ever said before, just to see their reaction.
It's almost like accomplice sold. It's like, I know who you are, but I don't know how to say your name.
Yes. Hello, Stefan Spalberg. How are you?
Yeah, I tried.
We just call him Stefan Spielberg.
Give him a bit of an ego check. We're like, not everyone knows you.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you. You're Stanley Kubrick, right?
That explains AI.
I didn't even mean that to have a connection. I was just picking a random dead director. So,
anyways, the detective,
Batman
Kubert.
Detective, yes. So, Tom Taylor #1s are something of an event on this show. As we know. In fact, here's the soundbite for people who want to hear it.
Tom Taylor.
Everyone enjoys the soundbite.
So I just noticed in the audio mixer that me and Matt can see, but the audience can't.
Yes.
Pete has software. He has that soundbite labeled Tom King.
I was intentional. I was.
Yes, no, I know it was, but I've never seen it before. I've never looked. I just happened to notice it this time. Just thought the audience deserved to know that was the case.
So yeah, Tom Taylor #1s are a bit of an event. He recently broke us all down to tears with Nightwing issue 1 a mere few weeks ago, and we have him doing a Batman miniseries where Batman is mainly going to be spending time in the UK, seemingly, or at least Europe, if not specifically the UK. Issue 1 definitely is though, and I guess I'll get the most negative thing I'm going to say about this out of the way. It's probably on the lower end of Tom Taylor #1s. I don't know if
I agree with that.
Yeah,
it's still good, but it's
still
not
good.
mind-blowing like some of his other stuff is.
You know, compared to like obviously Nightwing, but even like Suicide Squad #1, I thought was a more exciting #1 where I was like, oh, who had all these new characters? This is really well told and fun.
It almost seems like it's kind of lacking some of the heart.
It's very Frank Miller-esque.
Yeah, but it's almost by design. Like, it's definitely a Batman I don't enjoy. Like the inner monologues of Batman.
I think,
you know,
because the point, kind of Batman's is not in a great place right now. Right, that's kind of like, because this is very much in continuity.
Oh yeah.
This kind of takes place. It's obviously after Alfred's death, but it's just before he's moved out of the manor and into.
Yeah, I was going to suggest this is before Detective Comics currently, because I presume he comes back and then moves into that new apartment.
That's my assumption as well. Yeah. And he's not in a great place right now. So I'm thinking he'll probably be in a better place by the end of this book.
I don't know if I get the Frank Miller comparison when you bring it up. I think my general thinking though was that the inner monologue felt very 90s just in general. I got like a very 90s Batman.
I think in general that's still the Miller hangover.
It probably is
that 90s Batman.
So the plot here, we start with a plane from Gotham to London, which is basically the victim of a terrorist attack. There's a woman who puts on like a white Batman cowl and dives out the plane. The thing blows up. There is a survivor though. It just so happens that Knight is on there. I'm glad it said AKA Knight because I would never have known Beryl Hutchison's name.
Beryl. The only time I've ever heard the name Beryl is when it's the Knight, former Squire.
Yes.
Yes.
Honestly, probably true for me as well. I've never known a Beryl.
No. It's like someone wanted to call a kid Cheryl, but made a mistake when they were writing the name in.
They had a bug on their pen, and they're trying to.
It's almost like someone who wasn't filling out the birth certificate themselves, and someone was filling it out for them. Said, "What name do you want?" Cheryl. What's that? Beryl? He said Beryl. Okay, Beryl it is. And then they get home, look at it, and go, "Shit."
But
well.
With it now, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, can't change
it. Should be noted that the only reason Beryl survived is because she's the Knight and tried to stop these,
Yeah,
trying to follow the people.
She like dives out after the terrorist who's got a parachute or whatever.
Right.
And I mean, she's obviously badly beaten. She ends up in the hospital. Bruce, even the art's a little bit 90s actually. Like, that first page of Bruce at his back computer. Yeah, those arms.
His hands.
I'm not a big fan of Kubert's art style in this.
If I'm looking at it as a Miller-esque throwback intentionally, I like it a lot more.
I will say, yeah, the art's an interesting thing for me because I actually think the general flow of the panels and the layouts are really good, and I like how it feels as a story. But I would sort of agree that I'm not necessarily in love with the actual choices of line work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the proportions are kind of off. It's just like, I don't know. I now that Conrad points it out that it's Miller-esque, it clicks.
Yeah.
So
the one panel I really dislike is the second page after we see Bruce. So you got that big full page of him, with the hands. And the second page, when you see it from behind, at the bottom, he's like walking off across the bottom, and he looks like tiny. Like he looks like stumpy, is the word I'd use.
He also looks like he's walking through clay or something. It looks like he's like pulling his feet through the ground.
Yeah, it's like really. It's like, I think it's supposed to be just his shadow, but it looks like he's like sludged through.
Yeah. I feel bad nitpicking at that, but
No, it is. But I mean, that's probably the one part of the art I dislike. I think is. The rest of it I can see is stylistic choices, and I'm like, okay, no, I can see what it's going for and appreciate that, and even the line work of it. That one panel, I think is.
I think this is clearly a talented artist who is trying to achieve something and is doing it pretty well. It's just that, from a taste perspective,
not my thing.
Yeah, I'm not in love with it. But I don't think it's bad art by any means. Like we have
the title page too. It was bringing me back to the Return of Bruce Wayne stuff. Because this feels like a cover. This feels like when Bruce Wayne comes home.
Even
Nate was working on Batman a lot around that point, right?
Yeah. And even Nate and Squire, like I associate that mainly with Grant Morrison's like time on Batman. So it even makes sense in this issue to kind of harken back to that. So the new Squire shows up, who, as far as I know, is a new character.
She is.
Yeah, I think so because we've had Beryl as Knight before. But I don't remember the Squire.
No, this is new. I only know it was new because there was an article about this a couple of weeks ago when they released the cover for issue 3. So just before those solicits hit, kind of being like, here's your first look at the new Squire. So definitely new.
Yeah. And the plot goes into an interesting direction because Batman's at the crime scene of where this plane went down. And obviously he comes to investigate this because, this was clearly tied to him in some way. Someone made a point of tying it to the idea of Batman. And the Squire shows up at the crime scene and they're looking at things. Batman apparently has called in some favors to MI6 and various other authorities to like clear the area so he can have it to himself. And there's like a weird like spectre, a ghost. I didn't mean a spectre, not the spectre, just to make that clear for everyone at home.
Yeah. It's Gentleman Ghost, but he looks like the Predator.
It does a bit now that you mention it, in the mouth.
There's a little bit of that, yeah.
So, Bruce putting on the gloves and stuff, that's a good moment. And then you just turn, I'm like, what is this creature? And just like it's Gentleman Ghost, and he's like he's changed, and I'm like, is that supposed to be part of the mystery or?
I think that's just a stylistic update, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it. I definitely, Gentleman Ghost, the whole idea of the top hat and the big cowl, behind him with the monocle.
I'm assuming the
Well-
idea here is because it's such a intense thing that he's here to feed on.
That's what I'm
warped him
thinking.
a little bit.
Because he even mentions that this is like such a potent ground because so many people died here. That
Right.
In terror as well, not just died.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, people tend to be a little scared when they're in a plane plummeting to the ground. Typically.
Generally speaking, yeah.
And Batman goes to see Knight in the hospital. There's a bit of back and forth. I did like the sort of thing where Squire kind of told Batman to maybe ask how she is first, or and then in the scene he actually does say, "Are you okay?" and then points out that was that was Squire that made him say that effectively. But and he's like, "I punched a ghost," because she's like, "Hey, how did you impress her? What did you do to like?"
It's like, don't know what you're on about.
Yeah. So there's stuff, and then so this team of the white Batmen, I suppose, show up. One of whom is clearly meta-esque because he's huge and sort of I'd say Grundy size, perhaps, for lack of a better term.
Very Grundy-esque too, just in the temper, I guess you could say. But yeah,
one appears to be the woman from the plane, then there's two guys there as well. So they show up at the hospital, and Batman, obviously tries to intervene. They go falling out the window. There's a lot of action. They're firing guns at him, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it basically ends with just the revelation of what this plane was and who was on it. Because there's a lot of Batman's monologue in the issue talking about has he actually accomplished anything good, because he's in a dark place because Alfred's dead. Has he actually done anything for anyone outside of maybe, like, say, the Robins, who he's specifically saved from certain paths of their lives, and the Batgirls, perhaps? Like, how many lives has he actually affected? So the dark sort of ending to this is the realization that everyone on this plane, how this group managed this exactly, is maybe something open for questioning that maybe they'll answer in future issues. But everyone on this plane was someone that Batman has saved at some point in his career, which is a really dark.
I would say it is intentional. Like, he mentions that this is very intentionally been organized, and it was difficult to do. Like, engineered, I think, was the word he used.
Yeah. Well,
so I think part of the mystery will be who has this pull, who can pull this off.
Not that I didn't trust Taylor to adhere to his own title, but it's called Detective, so I'm glad that there is a sort of mystery detective story to actually.
I think that's especially
uncover.
fair, given that the title was changed as well.
Yeah.
So you don't know if it had always planned to be like that, or if it was just here's an extra. Now it's a detective story because they changed the title.
I was
gonna say I don't think they changed the story though to adhere to the new title.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That doesn't mean it's like there was no guarantee it was a detective story because it had a different title before, and they might have just used that title just because.
Yeah. What are you saying, Matt?
I was gonna say the further the book went along, the more it was reminding me of Morrison's run, which is I really enjoy up to a point, up to when he gets to kind of like the Return of Bruce Wayne. He's a little bit wonky, and then the ink stuff I never really finished, but just the fact that Batman kind of has a network of fellow heroes like him is something that I've always kind of liked, like the whole Club of Heroes.
Yeah, it's nice to see Knight and Squire as well. I always enjoy.
Yeah, see Knight and Squire, and if he's going across Europe, maybe we're gonna get to see some of the other ones, pop up, to lend an assist, and because you got to think that if this group's about balance and clearing the ledger, right, trying to take out the people that Batman saved, then that's gonna draw in the other people that Batman has inspired.
So does it have a ripple effect of will they then target the people that he inspired saved?
Right, because if he's inspiring them, he's become that image, that symbol, right? So, yeah. But at the beginning, I was kind of like, this is kind of wonky. Doesn't feel like Taylor. It's kind of lacking that heart that I've come to expect from all the stuff that I've read from him. Like even Deceased weirdly had a heart for a horror zombie story.
It had tons of heart, that book.
Yeah, like you wouldn't think that in like a zombie heart, like a, you know what I mean?
I think what's so funny is that if they just sold us from the start that this is going to be kind of a throwback to a couple of different things, and the whole point of it was that it wants to feel like this, and this wouldn't be a surprise. But I think we all come in here expecting just a through and through Tom Taylor book, and he's kind of doing this emulation of a couple of different things. And I think it's fairly succeeding at that so far, and I'm down to see where this goes. But it's definitely not exactly like the peak Tom Taylor that I look forward to in all his other books.
That's fair. I'm enjoying it though. Like as you say, it's like a Frank Miller meets Grant Morrison kind of greatest hits almost.
Oh, and me and Matt will be talking about Frank Miller later. Don't you worry.
Weirdly.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on in Rorschach?
The weirdest twist.
Yeah, just wait.
The weirdest revelation I have ever had in the comic book may have been in Rorschach issue 7.
I almost went onto Twitter and was like, Rorschach 7 was a doozy.
Okay.
But yeah. But Batman Detective is I think it's one of those things where I'm so used to coming to Tom Taylor books and like almost expecting like an 8.5 at least, and not being surprised when I go higher than that. And I came into this and I was like, yeah, this is reading well, it's flowing nice and smoothly. I got to the end of the book quite quickly, but it didn't necessarily feel like a lot of his other stuff. And I'm happy for him to experiment, and maybe this is why it's like just a mini, because it's like, oh, this is just like a fun little throwback kind of thing.
I'm okay with this. Personally, I'm enjoying it. I like it a lot. I think maybe more than you two do, by the sounds of it, a little bit. But also the fact that we've got other Taylor books ongoing right now, and we've got more to be announced for sure. It's like, yeah, I can live with just a random side 6-issue throwback. While I've still got Nightwing at the same time.
I think what this says to me is that the regular Batman that Tom Taylor has in him is still there. So the run that we might get potentially one day on Batman or Detective or whatever it might end up in, this isn't encroaching on that. This isn't.
You think he's saving all his good stuff for the big leagues?
I don't want to say good stuff, but I feel like this is a very focused thing and idea. Whereas, based on say that one shot that he did, it was at the annual or the whatever that the Alfred story was in.
It was an annual, yeah.
Yeah. Based on that kind of thing, I'm like, he's got a run in him somewhere. Like somewhere down the line, that guy's going to be on Batman or Detective, and it's going to be a magical experience. But
and I think little glimmers of that shine through here. Just the way he talks about his two fathers in this issue.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, it's still like that Tom Taylor DNA is still kind of etched in there underneath the homages.
Yeah, I don't think he can hide it completely. But this does feel very separate and a very focused, like, there's a very particular goal for this, I think. And, yeah. That would be a big deal.
I do like that it's continuity, though, rather than just being like this completely separate, irrelevant thing.
Yeah. And I'm sure they've made it fit and, so, as best they can with what's going on. Maybe it'll even end with him going to get his new apartment or something. It's like a one-panel thing to sort of just really slot it into the timeline neatly. But cool. All right, Matt, what are you giving Batman the Detective issue 1?
I'm gonna give this a 7.
Sure.
I'm gonna give it the 8, just about.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Matt. I'll go with the 7 here. Good, but not blown away. Which for a Tom Taylor book is almost disappointing to not be blown away. But it is what it is. All right. Superman issue 30. Philip K. Johnson and Scott Godlewski on the main story, of course. We'll get to the backup in a bit. So this effectively was kind of a fresh start again in a way. Obviously, thematically, it's still relevant what happened in the last issue, but because they did that little two-parter between the two books, this month's the first issue of the Superman arc, first issue of the action arc. We'll get to that later in the month, obviously. So curious to see what this arc was going to be and what it is. And it introduces some ideas in here. At least I'm assuming this is all new stuff. I don't know if this is actually calling back to some old story. I don't think it is, but I mean, if people tell me it is, I'll listen to you, I suppose.
Yeah, it feels new though, because this feels from what I've heard about Johnson and his his fantasy stuff. So this is kind of very much laying fantasy over space stuff. Alien.
Given the whole King Arthur issue, it shouldn't be too surprising.
Yeah. No.
Yes, by far his worst issue of anything Superman so far. Yes.
That's patently not true, but okay. He has not had a bad. So if you're talking about it's like a 9 when the rest are 10s, then sure. But they've all been good.
Matt's scale's just broken. This is the broken.
It is because it's pointless.
Yes. So Superman is in deep trouble. The first page, and he's basically saying, in his narration, he's like, I'm leaving this journal for Lois and John to read, and he describes the start of this story that led him here. And we never come back to like him present day as he's like thinking this in this issue. So that's something to come later on. And we get a happy kind of moment between Clark, Lois, and John. They're playing mini golf, and Lois is complaining that they're both too good, which I also kind of just read as she's not very good at it and is looking for excuses. But it's all this. But Clark hears like a message, like a voice that's being broadcast through space, and he's very concerned. And John flies off with him. And there's a couple of nice moments here, like Clark in his narration saying, I held, we can't talk in space because it's a vacuum, so I just kind of held back so I could watch John fly in front of me, and just sort of, bask in the glory of my baby boy, and just how, super he is.
I do love that Johnson's taking time to give the, parent aspect of Clark, which is something that we did miss out on with Bendis, so... not even the parental, but more of the family aspect too, which is nice.
Was that in part because he relatively immediately kind of separated John, so that there wasn't any room to explore that stuff?
Yeah, and even the Lois and Clark stuff was, them teaming up because Leviathan. There wasn't any of these small, quiet moments with them, really. The only one I can really think of was right after everything, right? Or it was the issue where they talk about the girl that creates the music, and Clark can always hear it.
There was that. There was definitely other stuff. Admittedly, a couple of the moments I'm thinking of might have been from the Lois Lane book, but that was so ingrained in everything that was going on that it didn't feel like it didn't feel like it was missing overall in Superman, because at least one of the books was having moments like that.
Right, but I'm talking in the pages of Superman itself. Like Bendis clearly had a story he was going through, like this big, sprawling thing. Whereas I feel like Johnson's just taking time. That these might even be smaller stories. Like I don't see this being like a 6-issue arc. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it just feels
15 issues later. We're still on this arc, and Matt was wrong all along.
I was feeling the SpongeBob gif.
4 hours later.
Yes.
I don't actually know that GIF, but I got the context.
No.
You need to up your GIF game.
Apparently. What I heard was Ron Howard going, "It wasn't."
Yeah.
That's what I get from that moment.
Sure. They're about the same.
Yeah. So they go to this planet where Superman was once upon a time, Thakrum, and talks about how him and 2 of the native aliens here, they defeated this giant dead alien fell out of the sky, but it had this like parasite in it that it kind of operated like a black hole almost. It was absorbing things, and they worked together to defeat it. And tells a story how one was the leader of the people, or at least became the leader after they helped stop all this, and then the other alien was like the inventor, the genius who kind of came up with the device that sort of helped tackle the thing. And forgive me if I'm not remembering names here, because it's all new alien.
Yeah. We have Quarath O'Danum.
That was the leader. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Falder Pornum.
and that's the inventor / scientist. Or
it's very John Carter of Mars, which I 100% appreciate. Not that I'm well versed in that, but just the idea of Superman going to this alien planet where there's this whole civilization, and he helps them. He doesn't become their sole guardian in the way like Adam Strange did with Rand, but he teamed up with the locals to help take out this beast, and it gives it a very old school sci-fi, kind of vibe to the story.
Whoever does an Adam Strange story and actually really call it Adam Strange of Ran, just for the reference that you made me think of there.
I'm surprised that hasn't been done already, to be honest.
Yeah. So basically, the aliens here, first they're a bit hostile, but then the old one comes out and sort of understands who Superman is.
It's Falder.
Yeah. They say, "No, we didn't send any message. No, there's nothing. The fact the alien you said sent you a message is dead. So this is
bit of a mystery going on.
It's a bit odd, very bit odd. And they agree to leave, but Superman's actually still very suspicious because something came from somewhere. So he at least wants to go check the corpse of the big alien to make sure it didn't leave. It's still in the place they left it, disposed of it, and it's still there. But they find the communicator that sent the message is there. It's very suspicious, and I actually, until I read the rest of the issue, I thought what it was setting up here is that this alien planet wanted to trap Superman, and this was all a trap to lure him in. But then it kind of reveals a bit more to this, where this parasite or the dead alien has taken over one of the aliens, or maybe he's taken over multiple of the aliens and is spreading between them, body snatcher style. Because we see the old alien be attacked, and sort of the final page is kind of the black shadowy or goo or whatever it is coming from the eye, and
I think it's spreading because it's in both of them at the end.
That's a fair point. But
you're right that it's very much body snatchers, because Clark is kind of like Falder, he's a little bit off, but that comes with age. I haven't seen them in a very long time. Maybe
people change.
Whatever. So yeah, from that point, he feels something's off, and then he even says because of their language, different things have different meanings, and you have to really look into the context. So that sets up at the end that where he said it's not the end, Quarathodanum. What he actually meant was it's not dead. So the job wasn't done, but Clark left. So who knows how long this has been, rotting in this planet in Thakram.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yep.
I think it's a real nice little mystery, kind of wrapped up in, I say, these older sci-fi or fantasy-esque kind of setting.
Yeah.
It's got an interesting kind of light tone to it, while still kind of tackling, a relatively serious subject.
Parts that stood out to me is when Falder, he kind of, not that he talks down to Superman, but at one point he refers to him as my weakling little brother. And
which plays in again,
because
Clark tells John they have kind of weird assumptions about family, their family are more rivalries than anything.
Yeah, not even just assumptions, but just the way they feel for each other. They don't feel affection and love and tenderness and pride. They feel. I mean, it doesn't quite say hostility, but the idea is everything's a competition. Everything's.
Yeah, how can he help me get what I need?
Yeah.
So then when you see that, and he's calling him his weakling little brother, you're like, oh, okay, this guy's a little bit different. And then at the end, you're like, oh, that's why he's a little bit different, because he's a host of some kind.
There's a part where the dead king, I'm gonna call him King's son, is talking, and he mentions, his father's old servants, and John tries to question it, but Clark just brushes straight over it. And again, I think that's one of those linguistic things where servant doesn't necessarily in this context mean, bordering on slave here, but paid. I don't think it's like that. I think it's more akin to subject, perhaps.
Yeah, it was because when they introduced the concept, when they first get to the planet, and Clark mentions the language thing where they've got their translators, but there's a lot of words have multiple meanings, so it's kind of you have to gauge what they're saying. as okay, this seems like an interesting way of making me think about what they're saying every time they say something, because now I have to question exactly what it means, and is there a second meaning I can ascertain from the sentence they've given. And I think, admittedly, the little sleep I had in the last day when I read this meant I probably wasn't in the top of my game for deciphering code in the text, so I just let Superman explain it to me as they came up. But it's a fun idea that maybe they'll make use of throughout this arc, where they'll maybe say something clear as day to us, but we won't notice it at first, or maybe it's something we have to figure out because it's phrased in a intentionally, misleading way. But they've set up the rules here that a lot of words just flat out mean multiple things, but not in a super devious way either. Because like the example at the end where this is not the end, it's not dead. You can see how dead and end are. You can see why they're related words. It doesn't seem super. It's not like dead also means sausage.
There's a linguistic route that you can kind of follow logically, even if it's not immediately clear. Yeah,
so it's not complete nonsense, which makes it a bit fulfilling. So if they hold true to that, that could be kind of fun. Art's really solid. I think the one thing for me is that it is kind of light in tone, bizarrely, which is a little bit weird given that the opening page is, this might be the last time I ever leave Earth, or
Do you know what this opening page is making me even more feel like, like I was saying how before with this first arc or two, it feels like maybe this is where Clark kind of passes the mantle on to John for a little while. And it's like I'm still getting that feeling here. Like this feels like the final entries before we go off to maybe we do actually do the War World stuff that we saw in Future State, kind of lead to that a bit more directly. I don't know, but it definitely feels like it's heading in that direction still.
Yeah, it also kind of feels a little bit of a pulpy adventure. I mean, there's not some serious themes in here to play with, but it does feel a bit lighter and pulpier, and I wonder if the intention of that as well is to give us an arc or two like that before it gets to the more serious, long-form stuff. The idea is like, here's an example of my Superman working with John in a sort of traditional fun story, and then we're going to move into, the thing that breaks him, and
set the baseline first.
Yeah. Between this and action, because I imagine, if he's doing stuff with John in this book, I imagine action is going to be without John and do other things.
Yeah, we know action, the first arc that starts in a week or two, whenever that book is War World Rising. So it is leading pretty directly towards that stuff. So I'm interested.
Yeah, no, it's neat. Pretty solid though. Art is also very good, I think.
Yeah, I like Godlewski. There's some parts of it where it looks a little bit like, I don't want to say rushed, but it's not quite, crisp as I've seen him in other books, but it's still good.
I think
he's a very good Superman artist.
His style works for Superman. I agree with that. I think the 2-page it's not really quite a spread. I mean, there's a sort of spread in the background and panels at the bottom in front of it, but where they show the dead celestial alien or whatever it is, or the big giant space bug in the cave. I thought that looked quite nice. It kind of sold the scale of it really well.
The colors as well, like that point there's the bit where they're telling the story of what happened. They really kind of give it an extra presence, the reds and the oranges.
Yeah.
Not sure who the colorist was. I'm just looking. Gabe Eltabe. I think he's doing a really great job.
Yeah. So that is the main story in Superman. Matt, what are you giving the main story?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah. I usually go to Connor. I don't know why I'm suffer over mine first.
I mean,
Connor.
I mind if you want.
Yeah, on you go, Connor.
It's an 8. There you go. Carry on.
I'm pretty much on the 8 as well. Like I'm tempted to go 7.5, but it's in that kind of range there. Now let's see if the backup though can solidify that number, because we're continuing the tale. So it's not Bibble focused this time. So we're following the villains and the hunt for the villains, but we've shifted to a meeting that Jimmy's having with various sort of C-list and D-list heroes in Metropolis. Mainly Ambush Bug is the one that we're going to focus on in this particular issue, this backup story. So we're looking at...
I like Ambush Bug. I just don't.
You don't like Ambush Bug? Okay.
Why not?
No, I feel like it's a second-rate Deadpool thing, and I don't know who was first or.
I guess Matt
I'm
didn't
sure.
vote for the Ambush Bug book then.
No, in the
I did
tournament,
not.
no.
Did you
I-
cover who was on all those teams last week?
Mm-mm. No, because I didn't think they announced the teams.
They did for the ones who won for that first round. So the
Oh,
next day they
no.
announced
No.
the teams.
No, we didn't see that.
God damn it!
I'll be honest, I thought we only talked about the tournament last week, but then
No, because I was here for that.
you were here for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, you know what?
I was the week I wasn't here because I was doing my floor. Yeah. So go ahead, look those up, Connor, and I just like.
I think the reason why Ambush Bug. Not that I've read a ton of Ambush Bug, admittedly, right? This is I'm relatively novice on the character, but I think the reason why I can get into Ambush Bug a bit more than Deadpool is because he comes across because Deadpool has this kind of like snide, I think I'm the most hilarious thing ever thing going, right? Ambush Bug to me comes across as a red shirt who knows he's a red shirt and stumbles his way through things. There's kind of like a charming like
Stupidity to it.
Yeah. And I combine that, maybe it's because he looks a little bit like it, but I get like almost like I imagine like Abe Sapien from Hellboy, but like goofy in terms of the way he's acting. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like this. I know they're rotating people from Metropolis. The way the story was told to me, it was like super like the flow just wasn't there. And I just know it's because I just don't like Ambush Bug, but a lot of the stuff, like the comedy, just didn't work for me. Like I feel in the hands of another like because as I just look up who created Ambush Bug, and it was Keith Geffen was one of the creators. I think in the hands of like Geffen and then like the I Can't Believe It's Not the Justice League type people, I think it works a little bit better. And I've liked Sean Lewis so far in Metropolis. This one just it didn't.
I'm going to be honest here. It sounds like Matt's just upset that it's not a Bibble Part 2 story. He's disappointed.
No, because it could have been Guardian. It could have been. I'm not a fan of Ambush Bug. Like anytime, I think really the only time I've enjoyed Ambush Bug was in Flashpoint when he popped up in one of the books and was like completely self-aware of how messed up everything was. So.
Well.
Yeah.
Anywho, the villains that we're following here are Deadstream, who's the water, based one, and then Projectress, who I don't know if we ever get that name for her last time, but it makes sense given what she could do. It's not a stretch. Basically, Deadstream is in Ambush Bug's coffee at this meeting, and Ambush Bug starts freaking out because he's like saying man in throat, which I thought was kind of amusing, to be honest. And everyone else is like, oh my god, this is why we don't invite Ambush Bug. We took him off the texting group. Come on.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So Ambush Bug teleports to a desert planet where there's no water, which completely takes care of Deadstream because he's got no power where there's no water. And he demands to know where Projectress is, and then he teleports back. However, Projectress, of course, as Ambush Bug was born at the start of the story, she can make people see their fantasies, right? Obviously, in Bibble's case, it was the beautiful woman and all that rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So Ambush Bug comes back to like the city, and it's this Metropolis version of Times Square, but like Ambush Bug's like on every screen. He's like a movie star. Tons of lady versions of Ambush Bug species, whatever that species is.
Bug.
Just Bug.
I think so.
Yeah. And he acknowledges in his narration that he's got a bit of an ego, but he like sort of buys into it immediately because this is great. But then he sort of snaps out of it with
because at least I'm interesting enough to have a fatal flaw. I don't know. I had fun with it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is the best thing ever, but as a little 10-page thing, I thought it was fun. I like Ambush Bug, especially in small doses like this.
Yeah, because these villains want Superman, and they actually carve into Ambush Bug's back. So Projectress carves into his back. Time to call the Kryptonian. So it ends kind of with this kind of thing. So, and it looks like we're getting Gangbuster and Loose Cannon next part. I enjoyed this well enough. For me, this was probably a bit on par with the Bibble one last issue. I was kind of into about equals
I think I
amounts.
enjoyed it slightly more.
There you go. So, just Matt then.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you rating the backup, Matt?
I'll give this a 6.
Carter?
I'm just gonna give it an 8 again.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar place with the main story, where it's just probably just about an 8. So, surprising no one. Full rating for the book for me is an 8. Carter's an 8. Because, and you could try and shock us, I suppose, but if you try and twist and turn it after you give both stories an 8, then it's anything but an 8.
Well, maybe it's more than the sum of its parts. It's an 8.5. It's not, but it could have been.
I went on a
I mean,
hunch.
I'm still going to give it an 8 because, I really enjoyed that Superman story. So,
Yeah, and luckily the ambush book story was there to like drag it up into a decent score.
Sure.
All right, I'm just trying to poke Matt, and he's having none of it apparently.
It's not.
None of it.
None of it. Okay, that's fine.
Do you want to have a little interlude between books where I give you the
Yeah.
teams for those top 8 books in the voting?
I'll leave it to the end.
I thought a little interlude might be fun. So,
Just for timestamp reasons, I would prefer it to be after all the books and the other sections. Okay, that's all.
you could timestamp news part 2.
I'm not timestamping news part 2. I'm not going to look for it. It's not happening.
You have to look for the next book anyway.
I look for the next book. Don't question my methods, okay?
Fine.
If it goes here, the only people who are going to hear it are the ones who specifically read Superman and care about the backup. No one else will see it or hear it. So, quiet. Wonder Woman, issue 771. Becky, Cloonan, and Michael Conrad writing with Travis Moore on the art. And I'll get it out of the way. I'm done.
Oh, come on.
I'm with you.
I like the art's still great, but I was just, this was a tedious read for me. I have no interest in reading more of this. I'm good.
Okay.
There was a snake. Wonder Woman went in an egg.
You get Nidhogg. You have the. Oh, come on, man.
Like, I know who Nidhogg
Grandpa's
is.
running
I don't
up
know
the
who
tree.
Nidhogg is.
That's the snake. They told you.
Well, no, I know
Go
it is
down to
now
the
from the
boots of
book.
Yggdrasil.
No, but you said that as if I would know who Nidhogg is was before. I didn't know who Nidhogg is was before.
No, but you said there was a snake. So if you read, they told you its name is Nidhogg numerous times.
No, you're not getting my point, Matt. You said it as if I would care about Nidhogg. I don't, because I didn't know who it was before. That was
Right, because you were just so dismissive. You're like, oh, there's a snake, and she has to go into an egg, and it's like it just came from nowhere.
And then it's like, oh,
not.
what side is Ratatosk actually playing?
His own, because he serves Yggdrasil. So if Yggdrasil's sick, then it makes sense that he's got to,
Probably.
do
is-
whatever
is
it
the
takes to save Yggdrasil.
like, if you're in this mythology, I get why, because it's well told enough. I do think it's a little bit worded though. I was a little.
Yeah, no, it is a little bit wordy.
The first issue was too. That was one of my main critiques of the first issue. But
especially with the Thor stuff, just
yeah, I went on a bit. Definitely went on a bit.
it felt like there's something a bit sinister going on where he's just like, oh, there's nothing to worry about because
It's kind of very
let the
Thor, though.
Valkyries deal with it.
That's
very Thor.
Yeah.
But everything I felt in the last issue with this arc, and potentially this run, depending on where it goes and how long we're doing all this mythology crap, it just feels like a tangent. It feels like something to do for a while, and
It's like fun.
and if I cared about this mythology, I'd be more into it. But as it is, I do not, and this was a bit of a chore to get through as a result. So, I'll let you two take the lead. I mean, I did read this, but I'll let you two take the lead because I clearly have nothing that I'm interested in saying.
Yeah. So, Diana goes to Thor because she recognizes he's a god and tries to talk to him about like Siegfried missing and this is not normal. And he's like, oh no, that's how Valhalla replenishes itself. And
Every so often, some people fade out so we can have fresh blood.
Right. And he seems just to take it. And then she brings up the Valkyries and he kind of gets dodgy about it. And he's like, oh, you don't want the Valkyries to not be on your side. Right. and stuff.
And then he's like, besides, the missing people are mostly from their team, not mine, so nothing to worry about. Just gives us an
Which
advantage.
again, on par with mythological Thor.
Yep.
You know, which I do love that this feels nothing like Thor from Marvel, like at all. It is very, very much the Thor that gets drunk and fights trolls, and you know, that version of him.
Yeah.
So
he's not the smartest tool.
no. So I mean, he wields a hammer. Like that's it. You know. So they so her and Radostok go, you know, through Yggdrasil, and he says that they have to go to Nidhogg because, you know, give me the exact reason. It's been
it's because they're fighting the elves, or is it before the elves? I think it's before the elves. The thing is, they want to go down because the weapon that Sigurd had. They're like, I mean, maybe the dwarves. Let's go down and try and get some answers.
That's right. And so they fight some merc elves, which, you know, and other one are dark elves in the mythology of the two different kinds. And you know, usually elves and dwarves is the one thing that Tolkien borrowed for you know, Middle Earth. Elves and dwarves don't get along. So why are the elves protecting the, you know, the doorway?
I would say he also borrowed a lot of the difference between light and dark elves.
Yeah.
With them being very similar, is not
right.
Similar from the fact that orcs, the non-goblin orcs, tend to be the first ones who were corrupted elves. So there's kind of like a twist on them being the dark elves.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like this, the whole dwarves and elves don't get along. You know, long-standing rivalry between them.
Yeah.
And during the fight.
Yeah. So like, you know, they're having a big fight outside the cave, and they drop a massive boulder on her.
Mm-hmm.
Like quite a big one as well. You know, and they use levers to push it off, and it actually knocks her unconscious. So she has a vision, like we got in the dream last time, of the mysterious figure saying, you know, telling her she doesn't belong in Asgard, and then they start saying, you know, something's wrong with Olympus. Or something's wrong with it. That's maybe my assumption that I'm projecting onto that. You know, they say Olympus is, and then it cuts off. And maybe they're saying Olympus is your home.
Not saying this isn't important, but Olympus is. And then my brain automatically fell in Fallen from those stupid Gerard Butler movies. You know.
I'm not gonna lie. When the boulder fell on her, right, when it was pushed on her, my thought was, and Conrad will push this more than Matt, but my thought is that Wonder Woman didn't hit the QTE. Because all I could think was Resident Evil 4 when they drop a boulder on you and you have to hit some buttons to dodge out the way. Hey, it's not a great insight, but
sure.
I read the book, so I'm interjecting a thought.
I do like when she goes to this realm. It is in black and white, but almost like unfinished pencils. Like she's almost reloading. You know, like you bring up a video game, but it's like she's respawning.
Yeah, I really like the color and how it's in the red border for the panels, and there's the red outline of the word bubbles of the mysterious figure. I do like that.
So Connor, you're a fellow fan of mythology. Are you getting Atlas vibes from this?
Are you saying that largely because of the way it's holding things up? Like the arms are up, it looks like it's holding up the world.
Yeah, and so like if you have Yggdrasil, which is the world tree, which connects all the different realms, right? And then you also have Atlas, who holds up the world. You know, that's his penance for being a, you know, for leading.
Titan.
Yeah, for being a Titan.
Some armies.
You would think that like maybe him holding the world is almost like a doorway. He's almost holding up the sphere of the gods.
I can see that logic actually.
Right.
Almost you could kind of do a twisted take on mythology where he is a branch of Yggdrasil. Right.
That's what I'm thinking. You know.
That'd be interesting.
Right, because you know they come back and they venture into the cave that leads to Nidavellir. After you know she's, you know, Diana's straight up murdering elves, and runs them off. And they get there, and this is the first surprise that I got is who happens to be in working the forge, but Dr. Psycho,
and I don't know about you, but this is the first time I've read anything with Dr. Psycho since watching the Harley Quinn show.
I can't not hear Tony Hale's voice.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No. And just the whole play on him being short, yet being the one manning the Forge.
Yep.
I'm just like, okay, well, the writers are having fun with the Wonder Woman mythology because now how the hell did he get here?
And yeah, he's just like, oh, this is nothing. Yeah, astral projection. This is my safe space. Raw masculinity.
Which I did love that aspect because, again, I was never that familiar with Dr. Psycho, and then watching the Harley Quinn show, and you get that he is toxic masculinity, right? He's got that chip on his shoulder, and no woman's better than him.
I
and
appreciate
then you
that
think
as well, 'cause
about
a lot of Norse mythology has been co-opted by terrible people for those reasons.
Right.
So kind of the idea that he's kind of taken that as well makes a lot of sense.
Makes a whole lot of sense. And just so I could throw some other stuff, that Viking culture, as we know historically, was actually pretty, equality based. That women could hold land and titles. I mean, it's still the Middle Ages.
More so than other cultures at the same time. Sure.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it wasn't 100% equality. But just being a woman didn't disqualify you from, holding land, being in charge.
A lot of leadership roles.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you could definitely hold land, and you could inherit, which was huge.
Right. So, just wanted to throw that out there, because, the Norse stuff does catch a lot of bad stuff because of the bad actors that have co-opted it, So, I gotta, as the resident Viking nerd, I have to,
Vikings were all... There is a difference between Viking and Norse. Viking being a profession. Vikings, on the whole, pretty terrible people.
Yeah. Well,
it's kind of what they did.
Trying to stop the spread of Christianity through that, tends to do that, right? Like,
well, there was many a pillage committed by Vikings. It's kind of their shtick.
Yeah.
Let's say not the best people, but very fascinating society.
Very much so. So, Psycho, who wants to be called by his actual name, which, how do you pronounce it? Is it sort of Psycho? Is it Cisco?
I don't know, because it reads as Cisco, doesn't it?
Right.
But I could buy that it's Psycho if you wanted to. I'm assuming it's not, just because otherwise he wouldn't be able to tell the difference when she called the dog the Psycho, right? Right.
So she wants to know, he's building these weapons, and so it goes off like, well, if there's something up with the weapons, that are being enchanted wrong or whatever, he must have something to do with it. So she makes him talk, and he claims he has nothing to do with the Valkyries whatsoever.
We should say, if that makes him talk, we're dealing with some torture here, right?
I think so, because she goes over to these weapons, but she doesn't grab a blade. She grabs a rope.
Right, and it talks about there's this familiarity, like, there's this, the memory almost of the lasso of truth, but this is not the lasso of truth.
I think that's the point, is that it's evoking the imagery of the lasso of truth. It says anything can be a lasso of truth in the right hands, which implies a really dark event took place.
He's tied to a chair, and all I can think of is Casino Royale.
Yeah. Well, it is Dr. Psycho, so it wouldn't have that much damage, right? You'd think. He ain't Bond.
It's a very small target.
Yeah. Come on. But no, definitely some light torture. You maybe, bending fingers back, maybe.
The one thing with Dr. Psycho is he would crack pretty quickly when it comes to physical torture, so it wouldn't take that much. So light torture is probably fair, but it's really dark. I love the colors here as well, because this whole place is underground. It's these deep reds, the furnace, but it takes over, and just for these couple of pages where the torture happens, and there's a lot of really heavy shadows. There's the panel of Ratatos kind of peering out from behind the corner, just in shadow, but this red glow, absolutely gorgeous.
And so he's the one that brings up the serpent. So they go down to the roots of Yggdrasil, and basically the serpent says that, I have the key, but it's, inside, so you got to come get it.
Yeah,
that's quite a
so
challenge.
I'll swap at you for an eagle egg. On Ratatosk's, I won't say advice. What's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of insistence, maybe interjection. And he's like, "Hey, well, what about an eagle egg? Yeah, that seems fair."
And so they do the swap, and so now they have to climb up Yggdrasil, which we get this real fun, back and forth between her and Radstock to get to the eagle, which I remember there's something special about the eagle, and I have to look this up. But as they're going up, they pass like a face on the tree, which I thought was a fun little art.
Yeah, that was nice. And then we run into Odin.
Yeah, who has hung himself, upside down, mind you.
I was going to say, interesting, probably more of a family-friendly, safe depiction, because this is, I'm assuming this is just a T-rated comic off the top of my head. So he's hanging from a foot, not from his neck, as is typically portrayed.
Mm-hmm. But he's hanging from the branch, and she asks if he's okay, and he's dozed off because he's sacrificed himself to gain knowledge, which, Norse mythology.
Yep. This is where he gives up his eye and hangs for 3 days.
Yeah. And so, talks about how, asks if she's met his son Thor. She says, yeah. He's a good kid, bit of a dunderhead, but he means well. And I was like, that's Thor in a nutshell.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, so you also have Hugin and Munin right there, which is another nice art flourish. Like Moore is really having a lot of fun. Like, and I don't know if that's in the script. I'm sure it is, but just the way that all these aspects are being thrown in, I appreciate them. But yeah, so they talk about the unknowable, and then he kind of cuts himself loose
and just goes dropping.
Right.
But he mentions, you do hope you sort the thing with the Valkyries out there, critical. And it's like, okay. And again, Odin's very cryptic here. That's
right.
This is quite a not a unique take, but an interesting take on Odin, where he'll speak in not necessarily riddles, but just seemingly nonsense, but is usually very, very important.
You have to kind of decipher it, which again tends to he's the god of wisdom and that type of stuff. So he's the main god.
He just knows a lot of stuff and just assumes that everyone else knows a lot of stuff as well. And when he talks, and then doesn't realize that we don't have that knowledge necessarily. And so you have to kind of really put pieces together. Things come clearer later. I will be interested to go back and read this conversation later in the arc. I'm sure it is enlightening.
Right. And as they're going up the tree, the battle horn sounds, and she looks, and there's still the fight going on, and it looks like giants have now entered the fray, which is pretty big thing. Seems like Ragnarok's along the way, and then Siegfried appears to her almost like in a vision. So
there's an interesting effect because it feels like there's something. Because if it was just the first panel, I would say, oh, it's just a vision. But the disappearing into the green smoke makes it feel like there was something there.
Yeah,
which is a little bit different to me. What I expect. It's like almost when the battle horn goes, he is still summoned. There is something there to call him back. I'm very intrigued as to what he's doing there.
Yeah, so they get to the eagle, and
very
unnamed
quickly gives up the egg.
Right, but so I'm looking here of the eagle and Nidhogg and Radstock, and there's a balance between them in the old Prose Edda, where Radstock carries messages between the unnamed eagle and Nidhogg, the worm that resides below the world tree. They propose many theories about the implications of this bird. Right, so like. Again, not exactly what's going on with the bird, but like Connor said, it hands it over pretty well. So whatever it is, it knows Radstock's plan, you would think. Just to hand over one of the eggs. And of course, Radstock's
slide all the way down.
Right. Which again, pretty fun visual flourishes here, you know. And then they hollow out the egg, and they put Diana in it because the shell's hard enough. It'll save her from all the teeth. And
seemingly a little bit Trojan horse stuff going on here.
Yeah. And Ratastock hands over the egg, says the eagle ate Diana. So unassuming. But Nidhogg, before the final panel, brings up that this makes our bargain null and void. All the key remains with me, and well done. Every day passes. I feel the roots of Yggdrasil weaken. So
it's very interesting because Diana even says to Ratatosk just a page or two before this that she's not sure if she's the one being tricked or not. You can't tell with Ratatosk.
Right.
And is it because, again, that's the implication here when he's talking with Nidhogg here at the end, is that no, they had a secret bargain, and he's just sacrificed Diana and given the egg, part of a larger plan. But I don't know. I don't know if that's Ratatosk tricking the serpent or not. I genuinely can't tell.
Right. I feel like if Ratastock, I don't feel is playing the wrong game because he lives in the World Tree. So if the roots of the World Tree are dying, that gives that up. So unless he's someone else, unless it's revealed this is a form of Loki, who's mischievous or whatever. But yeah. So I definitely feel like he's tricked Nidhogg here because we know Diana's in there and we know she's going to get the key, So
yeah, I think ultimately we have faith in Diana as a character to get herself out, right? Which, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this. It's a very dense issue. There's a lot goes on, as you can tell. We've gone through like 6 different plot threads. It seems like.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel that when I'm reading. It flows really well.
I felt it.
Even I was going to say, I think even Pete would acknowledge that despite not caring about all the mythology and stuff, it's not a challenging read.
I mean, it depends by challenge, I suppose. Because I did feel the length, I did feel the density. So
was that just on sheer like the amount of words, especially near the start, or was that on the actual there was a lot happening?
Probably mostly just the words for the most part, to be honest, near the start.
So
a lot of bubbles.
Being a fan of all this mythology and stuff, it definitely seems like someone's trying to break the cycle of Ragnarok, right? Because Ragnarok's a great cycle. Every time their time ends, it restarts and they do it all again. And that's what the whole stuff in Valhalla that Thor's not worried about, right? However, if someone's trying to weaken the World Tree and break the cycle and is trying to free Nidhogg, then who is behind that and why do they want to break the cycle? Because if they break the cycles, they're going to throw the sphere of the gods out of whack. Is this someone from Diana's realm? From Olympus that's doing this?
He spelled something. He's going to go and deal with the spellage. I can tell you, Matt.
No. So there's just a lot of questions that as someone that's more dialed into this than someone like you, Pete, that lends to questions. But removing all that, I mean, just her going to the key. This is typical hero stuff. This is stuff from mythology. Tricking the dragon or whatever. And yeah, so I really enjoy it. But that shocker, right? This is exactly the type of stuff I like Wonder Woman being involved in. So, and you throw Vikings in there or Norse stuff, and it's doubly so.
Yeah, I don't care about any of it. So
yeah, of course.
That's basically what it boils down to. I'm not typically into fantasy stories, and mythology to me is just fantasy. A lot of fantasy comes from mythology, or is a take on mythology in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's one of those things where I just I didn't leave it till last. Technically I left Rorschach to last because I always leave that to last for some reason. I guess because it's separate in my brain from the rest of the DC
Yeah.
books. But I left this to last of the rest of the books, partly because I just was putting it off because I knew I wasn't super enthusiastic about it. Well, it wasn't like all bad issue 1, certainly. There was definitely things to say, and the art is still very, very good. I knew I wasn't that excited, and then actually reading it, I kind of felt myself like I'm kind of forced myself through this because it's called Wonder Woman, not because I actually am enjoying what it's doing. It feels filler feels a bit harsh, but it does feel like it is just doing something that is separate from everything else because it's not allowed to be a part of anything else right now. So yeah, I'm done. I sort of knew about halfway through the issue. I was just kind of like, I'm done with this squirrel leading her around. And then Big Jake towards the end. I was like, I'm good.
Gotcha. So did you read the backup?
No, but I knew I wasn't going to read the backup because I didn't like it in the
me either.
first issue.
I looked at it, and for whatever reason, I thought it was going to be the Nubia stuff, right?
Nah.
And it was this, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So, Takara, did you read the backup? No, that was that. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then, if I'm rating it, I'm going to give this an 8.5 because I thoroughly enjoyed this. The art, again, and a lot of the story, despite being really dense, and a lot to read. It's a lot of what I like to read, so you can't complain too much.
Yeah. Well, Connor?
8.5 from me as well.
Yeah. This is a tough one to rate. I'll go with 5.5. I won't put it in the bad category because objectively I don't think it is bad. It's just I got nothing out of it and found it a bit of a chore. Because having a lot of dialogue isn't necessarily a big problem necessarily, but when I am uninterested in what the book's about and it's constantly referring to names and places and shit that I don't know, it just makes it kind of gloss over. Like, it's almost sleep fuel at that point where my brain just starts to turn away from it. But there you go. I'm sure you two will keep reading it though, so not to worry.
Not a chance of that stopping anytime soon.
There'll be coverage on Wonder Woman on the show. I'll jump back in when we're done with all this the Valhalla shit.
That's an interesting question then. So, assuming that this is a one arc thing, and the run continues, it still builds off of this stuff, but we're no longer in Valhalla and no longer playing with Norse mythology. Are you going to jump back in then, or like straight away?
No. I'll jump back in when Wonder Woman's back on Earth and doing regular continuity stuff.
Hey, but we are gonna have a Wonder Girl starting soon. So
yes. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep getting to those the single page ads for it at the back of the books.
Yeah,
it makes me very happy.
Yeah, I'm not into Wonder Woman going around, even if it's various different settings, being like vaguely amnesiac. Is that a word?
I mean, assuming that again, hypothetically, end of this arc, she has her memories back, and she's dealing with Olympus. Like, she's back to her own area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Does that count as like it's technically not Earth, but it's still like that's Wonder Woman territory?
It's hard to judge. It's especially hard to judge when I'm not reading it, and like, is it enough of a change to justify me?
It's like he doesn't want to say no, but he doesn't want to hard commit either. So he's like, meh.
Yeah, I'm not hard committing. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with admitting you're not 100% sure on something. Okay, that's okay.
No, I know, but just the way that you were saying it, it was just like
it's really hedging your bets.
Yeah, it was real funny to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this, because maybe this run will only be all this stuff, and then once we do have her back on like a sort of more regular place, it'll be a new run then, and so then maybe that'll be when I jump back in anyway. But for now, I'm good. I'm good. I don't feel like I'm going to miss anything that important.
So Pete doesn't like the eagle, the squirrel, the snakes. He's gonna hate the deer if they get to that point on the world tree. So,
yeah,
what Pete hates is fun.
Hey, I could. There's definitely a way to tell this story where I'm more into it. It's not like I can get into things that are set within this mythology.
Name one thing you're into that's set in this mythology.
I like God of War.
You
2018.
did it.
Admittedly,
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of a single god outside of the ones that I would know anyway in that game, but that's okay because what I cared about was Kratos.
Do you know
and his
who
son.
Tyr is?
No.
That's
Okay.
a big mystery in God of War, like because he's not
really?
there. Well, not who he is, but he's missing, so to speak.
To
so
put
that means
it,
justice is missing.
to put it in context, I don't remember which god the villain of God of War was. I remember what he looked like and what he sounded and what the fighting was like. I couldn't tell you what his name was. I don't know who it was. Was Balder? Okay.
Yeah.
I would never have gotten that in a
I
million
was going to
years.
suggest Balder, just because of the,
Well, because I'm assuming, Matt, you happen to presumably already know Baldur's weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty important in that game.
Very Achilles-esque.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like, I know Matt hasn't played that, and it plays it as like a mystery the first
Right.
couple of times you see him, but if you know your mythology, you get it pretty quickly. So I don't feel like I'm spoiling it for you personally.
No. Yeah.
I didn't know his weakness. I don't remember it now, if I'm honest, but that's okay.
Mistletoe.
Mistletoe.
Because Loki is the reason.
Yeah, because Loki. Yeah, it's a lot of mythology is because Loki.
I don't
Yeah.
remember shoving mistletoe in his face in the game, but alright. I'll take
Whoa,
it.
whoa, come on now.
I'm sure you have to forge a spear out of the wood of mistletoe, and then that's how
An
you
arrow.
defeat him. Because
Mistletoe arrow.
because again, that's a lot of Norse mythology is the gods just messing around and bad things happening because of it. And like one of my favorite stories is that at Baldur's funeral, the gods are so upset because they're not used to the gods dying, right? To make everyone feel better, Thor kicks a dwarf into the fire. And it's just like, yeah, okay, God's doing stuff because, we're sad, so we're gonna throw this, yeah.
Loki's a horse having horse babies. What are you gonna do about it?
Ooh, one of his horse babies is the 8-legged steed of Odin, Sleipnir.
Yes.
And another one's a wolf that's gonna eat the world, Fenrir.
Loki's such a weird character. I love it.
He is.
Does Balder never attack at Christmas because you might find some mistletoe?
Mhm.
It's like,
Well, there's the whole concept of the wild hunt is kind of what gives the idea of a lot of Christmas traditions that we celebrate now.
I'm just imagining Kratos just getting some mistletoe hanging up on the ceiling so that when Balder walks in to kill him, he's like, "Oh no, you're under the mistletoe."
And it was basically it's a godly oversight is the only reason that the mistletoe. It's like who gives a shit.
It's a lot. It's very similar to Achilles, with mom dipping him into the river by his heel. Therefore, it's the only part that's vulnerable.
Was
there's a difference to that where it's a force thing like that's inherent in the story. Is you have to have a weakness because of this. Whereas in Baldur, it's Loki going, "Screw you! You need a weakness."
Was the big snake in the lake and God of War the same snake as this Wonder Woman issue?
No. That's the Midgard serpent. That's a little bit different.
Okay.
That's the serpent
That's
that eventually
Jormungandr.
kills Thor.
Yeah, different snake.
In Ragnarok.
He seemed more friendly in God of War, which is why I was asking. But yes, okay.
Do you know the reason there's a lot of snakes in Norse mythology? It's
Go ahead.
it's or the reason that historians think there is a lot of snakes. They're not snakes at all. They're worms.
Right.
And it's because people in the Middle Ages had a lot of worms inside them, and they would come out and be rather large, and that led to a lot of unflattering opinions of the imagery of them. What led to a lot of stories.
Yeah. Well, another word for worm is also dragon, so that makes sense.
Yep.
That's disgusting.
It is disgusting, but it's why it stuck with me. It was such a fun fact to learn.
I didn't want to think about that. That is absolutely disgusting. I mean, there's a lot of things have improved since the Middle Ages. I'm now putting that number one on the list.
It's why Dog is generally considered to be unchivalrous and is a sign of poor honor.
Right.
It's because of that link.
Well, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. That's that conversation done. I'm happy to leave it and never come back.
Can you tell me and Matt like mythology?
I like other mythologies. The Expanse has great mythology.
It's not the same. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not.
Star Trek has cool mythology.
You know what the difference is?
Uh-huh.
When it's in a
Star Wars
TV
has
show,
cool
it's
mythology.
TV show, movies, it's lore. Ancient
Actually,
cultures, it's mythology.
You know
Joe-
what else has good mythology?
DC Comics.
I was gonna say Indiana Jones. Good mythology.
Not really.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, I mean that's not a strong part of Indiana Jones.
He's actively looking for mythological objects.
I
That's the
know,
joke.
but they're just MacGuffins. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
the, the journey's the important part. The actual
Wait,
mythological
I didn't
things.
actually meet it. I just meant it as a lark.
Hey, Mads Mikkelsen's going to be in Indiana Jones 5, Matt. How do you feel about it?
I'm excited. I like Mads.
I
Mads
did not see
tends
that
to-
part of the casting news,
Yeah.
so I'm all for that.
And Mads directed by James Mangold. That's sure he's the villain.
Yeah,
So-
they're not saying that. We're all assuming he's the villain, but they've not actually said
Yeah.
that. I want to point that out.
Yeah.
It's very easy to assume he's the villain, which is why certain movies use that to wonderful advantage.
On Hannibal, was he?
Wait, are you trying to imply Rogue One used that to wonderful
No, I'm
advantage?
not. I was actually implying The Hunt used that to wonderful advantage.
Oh,
Yeah.
As
okay.
an
All right,
audience,
I'll
we
accept that
assume
one.
He's a terrible person.
Yeah. What's supposed to be his nationality on Hannibal? Because I always forget
Oh,
what Hannibal was meant to be.
Because
Is he
he's
meant to be Austrian?
I don't know. He's actually Danish, though, right?
He's Danish,
Yeah,
Austrian. I mean, Hannibal's a very Austrian name.
Right.
I don't know. On that show,
I gotta find it now.
not sure they ever said, to be honest.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm wondering if he's the villain. What if he's maybe a leftover from Indiana Jones's best villains.
It's not impossible, I guess.
Oh dear. All right, let's move on, shall we? Dave was going to have fun editing the back chunk of that out of the Wonder Woman video. Batman Urban Legends issue 2 is the now ongoing anthology book with multiple ongoing stories. I was going to read you all the story credits just now because there's a nice handy credits page that I'm not going to come back to later, so I was going to read you them all. So we got the Red Hood story, 2 of 6. Chip Zdarsky writing that with Eddie Barrows and Eber Ferreira and Julio Ferreira on the art. We have an Oracle
And Marcus Toe as well on the art as well.
the flashback. Quite right, yeah.
Mhm.
Then we have Oracle and Ghost in the Machine, Cecil Castellucci writing with Margaret Savage on the art. We have got the next part of the Outsider story, which is part 2 of 3. That's Brandon Thomas writing with Max Dunbar on art. And we have the Grifter story, which is part 2 of 5, which is Matthew Rosenberg writing with Ryan Benjamin on art. So that's what's coming up. First things first, actually, before we get to them, is that I actually read like 2 pages of the Oracle story and then realized it was a follow-up to the run that we all dropped, and I just didn't read the rest of it. So
Okay.
I didn't read that one.
I read it all. We'll discuss.
Sure. Yeah, you can say what it is, but I like a couple of pages. I was like, oh my god, I don't like this. I like how it looks, and then I realized.
Oh,
So-
I'm shocked. Pete didn't like the artist. He hated in Future State.
Oh, is this the Supergirl
I will say-
artist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
For me, the art was the strongest part of that, but it's very silly. So we'll get there.
I spent most of it just kind of enjoying the art. I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you much about the story overall.
That's because there was not much there.
Fine, we'll
Well,
get to it.
let's start with Red Hood then. The last part ended with him killing the father of the boy that he has in his care, and it being this kind of shockingly good. The last like 4 or 5 pages of that Red Hood story last month was fantastic.
And then he proceeds to have a basic panic attack because he just was like, oh man, I wasn't thinking. This kid's an orphan now. Maybe I can't take him on. Like he's having an existential crisis. And yeah,
It's like, am I Bruce now?
yeah. I
yeah.
become what I hated.
Yeah, and he has the flashback, of course, to when his mother was, doing deals with a drug dealer, presumably selling herself for them.
Yep.
It's kind of an implication. Doesn't get too into it, but it's kind of the implication. And young Jason pushes this guy down the stairs. Now, it doesn't actually say that he killed him, but
I think there's a reasonable assumption, though, given that the issue starts with him talking about all the people he's killed and how he, it's been a pretty frequent occurrence for him.
I think it's kind of a big deal, though, that it's suggesting that he actually did kill someone before he even met Batman.
Here's the thing. He might have killed him by pushing him down the stairs, but I don't think the intent was to kill. The intent was to hurt.
Yeah. I mean,
so
it wasn't going for a kill shot. He pushed him out of anger. He just happened to fall badly.
The dude did pull a knife on him, so.
Oh, you suggesting this drug dealer wasn't an upstanding citizen with a...
Yeah.
What you're doing there, Matt, is you are defending Red Hood's very existence.
I am, because here's the thing, guys. They keep giving us good Red Hood stories. I can no longer say I hate the Red Hood as a concept. So if DC wants to stop...
Turns out you might have just hated Lobdell.
Maybe. Because I didn't mind when they brought him back, right? And that was Judd Winnick.
Mm-hmm.
Judd Winnick did the what was that called? It was the miniseries that took place in between his death and when he returned. And it involved Talia and the League of Shadows and all this stuff. That was good.
There's also the animated movie, Under the Red Hood.
Yep.
Which Winnick also wrote. What's really fascinating about that is he wrote it without rereading,
right?
Because he wrote the comics that it's based on as well. He did it without rereading what his script was, or any of the finished work. So you get like this really tight adaptation without any of the
streamlined.
Yeah.
So him, I just feel like Jason's needs to be enough away from everyone else, and here Zdarsky really does show how he's different than the rest of the Bat family. He really is the black sheep, but he still cares for people, right? Like, his whole point of the existential crisis here was like, okay, I got mad, I killed this guy, but now I just put this kid into the system, which was really bad for me, right? So,
he's
not a total dirtbag.
He has a line where he's like, wait, I just wait for like a billionaire to adopt him.
Yeah.
Like, he has a line like along those lines. So there's a scene where Batman's chasing down some of these thugs in a van. And I have to say, from an art perspective, my favorite sequence in the whole book is how it plays with like Batman scaring the shit out of these guys in the van.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the way it appears down the street after they get out of the van, and then the shadows sort of come in because the lights turn off. And then the following couple of pages where Batman's like, coming out of the darkness behind them as they're trying to fire a gun. This is a really like good like 3 or 4 pages of just like a Batman attacking some criminals stuff. This is just really solid stuff. Really liked it.
And the layouts are really cool because they play with the bat symbol, right? Like
lots of off angles as well to give us some motion.
Yeah, and then the guy takes a swing and says, "You don't scare me," and Batman pulls the grapple gun on him. And I'm like, wait, where did we just jump to? This is not bad. And then he goes, "How about now?" And he's basically got the guy's leg, Wile E. Coyote style.
Yeah.
Ties up to the lamppost.
Yeah. So, all very fun, classic Batman stuff.
Yeah, all very good. And this is what he ends up calling Oracle. The information here is interesting, though. It's playing into the ongoing stuff in that the thugs, because these used to be Scarecrow guys, and they claim that Scarecrow's dead. So this is playing into the belief that Scarecrow's dead. So it's a nice little tie-in continuity-wise to the main Batman book. But it mentions that they're working for Freeze, but they say that they're not even doing anything villainous. They're just getting his groceries.
Yeah.
Which I love the idea that Batman picks all these guys up, and all they were doing was going out and getting his lunch.
Freeze can't go out and get his own food. Not in that big bulky suit.
That's true.
I assumed, honestly, home delivery would have been the way to go. But if you've got goons, why not make the most of them?
Use them.
Well, yeah, because you have to pay your goons. I suppose you do. That's why they're goons. But if you're paying the goons, the point is, though, you're paying the goons anyway. You don't have to pay extra for delivery. Is what I'm saying.
Are you saying the goons are salaried?
Yeah.
I'm saying they're getting paid, at least paid per day.
I thought goons were paid on a per job basis.
Well, here's the thing. He says, "What's he up to?" He goes, "Honestly, nothing. He's sending us out for groceries, but it's work. He does the whole Flintstones.
Yeah.
So I think they're salaried, right? Because if he's not salaried, they don't have to take the grocery job. You know?
I presume that he keeps them on retainer and
Yeah.
pays them a set amount for menial tasks like this. Because if you had to pay them individually for each task like this, it'd cost them a fortune. It wouldn't be worth it.
I want to revisit the remember the app that was like hire a goon.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want that. But like you can advance and now you're in a salaried position. You're an upper level goon. I want this book.
Alright, so what you're saying, this is like Uber, but instead of paying for a random person to be a taxi driver, you're paying for them to just go pick up your food. Which I guess
it's like it's
kind of Uber
that's
Eats.
Uber
It's
Eats.
like
But I mean groceries though. I'm not talking about takeaway. I'm talking about
Right.
go pick up my, like bread, fish, and fruit.
it's Uber hench.
So he talks to Oracle on the comms though, and they talk about the Jason situation. The kid still wants to play with Jason's mask, which just makes him feel terrible. He's going through the whole thing. We get the rest of the flashback, which we already kind of mentioned. And, Batman, of course, comes to see Jason. And I kind of like this thing here where Jason, he could sort of stop and explain and sort of say exactly what happened, but he kind of acts in character for Jason and just gets angry and tells Batman he's being, too sanctimonious. And I'm like, Jason, there's actually a lot to go to this story that led to that moment, and the fact that there's a kid involved and why you got angry. Yep. But he isn't trying to explain anything. He just starts giving the regular Jason Todd speech to Batman that he always gives these days. And it's kind of like, so you see why Batman doesn't trust him. Right. But I do like that in the narration, Jason acknowledges it and says, I really shouldn't be saying this, but I can't help it. Like, I know this is not the course of action. And the powerful ending we have in this issue, which is not as powerful, I think, as some of the scenes at the end of the last issue, but is the kid actually comes in when they start fighting, and actually basically gets in front of Jason and tells Batman, no, Batman, he's a good guy. And that's kind of your dramatic ending. So... Which is powerful. It's powerful.
I think it's a really solid issue. I think the biggest problem is Barrows struggles with kids. It just looks like a short man.
Yeah.
Like Matt?
Shorter. I mean, some of them, I'm looking at them.
It's not all the time. Some of them are better than others, but like at the end where he's jumping in front and he's got his arm up. It's like doing it just looks like a short guy. It doesn't look like a kid, which is kind of my point.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's because kids have different proportions, right, in their body. It's not just that they're shorter; they are differently proportioned.
Big heads, small necks.
Yeah. Like, there are these things, and it just doesn't look right here.
Yeah. Okay. The artist was Barrows is a very dependable kind of artist. It's never. I don't think we ever rank him in the upper tier of, the ones we always praise and give best of the week to and all that. But a very dependable sort of B+ kind of artist, I'd say. I think
it's hurt a little bit with the fact that I think Marcus Toe is better. It kind of outshines him a little bit in the same issue.
But I think the dramatic end is really good. The idea of essentially this new orphan sticking up for Jason to Batman sort of adds a bit of a wrench in the usual flow of this dynamic, which is I think we're all kind of praying for a little bit, because when the conflict starts and Batman's yelling, you killed in my city, and Jason's just saying, you're all high and mighty, you prick, and they're just fighting and it's the same old thing. I think you're hoping for something to change the narrative because it's not the same old story. So when this kid gets in the middle of it, not only is this kid being kind of this dramatic center point of the whole thing thus far, he now becomes this kind of literal change in the dynamic between the two characters, where maybe Bruce and Jason will even bond to some extent over this, because now Jason's got an orphan that he cares about. No,
because I do think that the kid's mom's gonna pull through.
But
and they're gonna help her not to create the same cycle that created
eventually, Matt. But until that happens, they're not going to know for a while, and I think they're going to milk
that's true.
During that time. I think that's when the bonding there will happen. But it's good stuff. I mean, we were impressed with that first part. I was going to say,
because in their fight, he says that Bruce is a failed parent, which I have many issues with Bruce, but that's not one of them. You know, Dick and Tim seem pretty well adjusted for being heroes.
I think it's interesting though that Jason feels that way.
Yeah.
That he didn't try and adapt to him.
Right.
I don't know. I think there's something there that you could criticize Bruce for.
I definitely understand where he's coming from on that one. Like, I get where Jason's rage comes from. And just as someone that has a difficult relationship with my own dad, him automatically, being like, "Oh, you got to be let in. You're a vampire. I didn't invite you."
So
just
some kids
starting off hostile.
Some kids are just more of a hassle.
Yeah.
More of a handful. That's maybe more a better phrase.
Yeah.
More of a handful, and Jason falls into that cat. It's kind of like saying the customer's always right. That's all fine and well, but some customers aren't.
The customer's an a-hole.
In my experience, most customers are wrong.
That's true. I actually agree with that, but
even when I'm the customer, I'm probably wrong.
Yeah. Well, you're Conrad. You're always wrong.
Yeah, so still waiting on that CR21 vaccination. I don't know when that's coming out.
It never is.
Yeah.
You gotta get through at least 250 more episodes before you even.
The treatments versus the disease. CR21.
All right, what are we rating the Red Hood story?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Connor?
Yeah, it's an 8 from me.
Yeah, I'm also giving it the straight 8. Nice and easy, that one. Then it's the Oracle story, Ghost in the Machine, which I didn't read past the first couple pages because I was sort of like, it was referencing things, and then I realized, oh wait, this is Castellucci. She was literally the one who was on the run that I abandoned, and I was like, oh, I don't think there's much point in me reading this now, and I'm not enjoying what I've read so far, and I don't like the art, so I just was okay, next story. So,
Connor, did you read it?
I technically yes, but I kind of, after about 3 pages, ended up kind of skimming.
Okay.
Not intentionally, just I found myself like just looking at the art and following it, and I like the bit where where she's at the part of the chess table and kind of talking to the various bats and like, I couldn't tell you what happened.
That was kind of. I was gonna say that's kind of what I did as well, in the sense that I read like 2 pages and then I noticed I was just kind of skimming the next couple of pages, and I went, you know what, there's no point in that. I'll just stop.
Yeah. So a lot like Castellucci's back row run, it's not like completely terrible. It's just very. It feels off. So there's cool things in here, like her wanting to become Oracle, and like her basically being the dispatch for the bat teams. That's a great concept. It's just the villain she's fighting is Vi Ross, whose actual name is like Vivian something, and she was an epidemiologist but also a computer person, where you're just like, all right, you're putting a hat on a hat at this point. Her name was Vivian Rossdale, aka Vi Ross, and she's going through and infecting Gotham with these little, like incidental things that Barbara ends up, stopping. But in doing so, she decides to create basically a mobile clock tower in her tracksuit, which I'm just like, what are we doing? This is just silly. Like, smart glasses. Okay, it's Batgirl. I can, she was Batgirl once. I can see that. Earbud for communications. Hidden pin button microphone. Telescoping antenna doubles as a cane or a weapon if needed. All right, so now we're turning her James Bond too. Like,
none of these individually sound like a big deal, but the fact that they're making a point of like listing all this out is what makes it feel a bit silly.
That was the page where I checked out, because I read the first 3 pages, more or less, and then I got to that page, and it was here's all the things on like various bits. It's all like the bubbles, but it's done in the style of the circuitry behind it, and I just love liking all that.
Yeah. Having just skimmed through it, the chess stuff with the Bat family members does seem like a fun idea that maybe could be used again in a different fashion by someone else. But
because she's looking through her smart goggles, right? Her glasses, and she's looking at them like they're the pieces on the chessboard, and they're sending them to these places that Virus has hit before, and it all comes down to floppy disks, and she manipulates. She's sitting on the bus, and with her super suit, she manipulates all of the green lights through this to get somewhere quicker. And I was like, all I could think of was, well, you just messed up traffic for everybody else. Like, it's very inconvenient. But
I will agree with that, but she didn't do it unsafely. She didn't put anyone at risk. She still just changed the lights.
right, but I don't know if you've ever been driving and
it's
ambulance
annoying.
comes through. Yeah.
It's
And
annoying.
then it throws off everything, and you're stuck at that light now for another 6 minutes as it resets.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. It is definitely
Right.
self.
This is sounding like
There's a better reason for it, but
this is sounding like the hit cult 80s film Rage War, where the guy's built a computer in his watch that he can change the traffic lights as he's jogging through
Huh.
at the start of the film. The actual premise of the film is that he ends up getting invaded by like an entity that puts him into a virtual world and forces him to fight for his fiancée in different settings. I don't know why I'm
So
telling
it's
you all
Tron?
this.
shit Tron is what I was just gonna say.
Yeah. He fights for the users?
it's more like his computer's rebelling. It's kind of anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you all this. It's just it made me think of it with the traffic lights thing.
So basically she figures out that it has something to do with the banking, that she's using these floppy disks and other solid state digital storage to basically throw the bank into chaos. So she gets there, stops Virus, who has a different, like, she's dressed as like a technician whose name is Pat Hogan, which becomes Pathogen. And I'm just like, okay, this story is just silly. If it wasn't an annual, it's whatever. But in something like this, I'm glad it's just a one-off.
Yeah.
I am also glad this was not one of something,
Yeah.
and it's just oh no, we get something else next time.
Yeah, it's just 10 or 15 pages, whatever it is, and
the art and the colors, and I like Savage a lot. So that all works. Like, the layouts are fine, and I just the story I'm reading it and I was just like, okay, this is why I kind of dropped Batgirl. Like, we weren't as excited anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to like this because I saw Savage's name right at the start, and I was like, "Ooh, hello!" and I enjoy the art a lot. But yeah, no, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Her name's kind of like, you know how there's a running thing. This is like Tim that started this, but we often say garbage instead of garbage. Savage sounds like that to Savage.
As a Clone Wars fan, it's really hard because there's Savage Opress,
yeah,
which is Darth Maul's kind of brother. Not necessarily literal, but from the same like clan.
They're from the same clan, but for Cliff's Notes version, it's his brother.
Yeah, that's all you need to know, really. But it's spelt just savage, and it's like
and
you have to
oppress.
say it, otherwise it just sounds stupid. Yeah, it sounds stupid if you just say savage oppress.
I remember I had Ash look for me when those toys were coming out. I was like, hey, if they have a Savage, bring it home for me. And she sent me a picture, and she calls me. She goes, oh, you mean Savage Opress? Is this the same one you're talking about? I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
She still didn't buy it for me, and I'm still mad. I still bring it up when we get into fights. So. She's like, you don't need it. I was like, you had it right there.
I idea that Matt and the wife are having like a very serious marital dispute over something very serious, like money or their future or stuff, possible divorce.
You are creating this joke of a scenario,
right? And then out of nowhere, in the middle of the fight about very real, serious issues that a couple will face, Matt will bring up, and you didn't buy me that one toy that one day.
Hitting a little bit close to home.
It's like you were there. It's like you were there. It's you never let me have any fun. I wanted that toy. Now I can't find it.
That's why he's talking about. I feel neglected because you're watching hockey all the time, and it's really ruining the sanctimony in this marriage. You didn't buy me Savage.
I don't even want to get going on the amount of T-shirts I have that I have to get rid of now. So, That was a conversation from last night when I got the Mark Stone shirt. They're going, hey, they're stacking up again. So, into the donation bin.
All right, you want to rate the Oracle story?
I'm going to give this a 5.5. That's mainly just for the art.
That is fair. We have the Outsider story next, which, if you remember last time, Metamorpho was like the tower.
Which honestly is my biggest thing from the start. I struggled to remember last time. I remember enjoying it, but I struggled to remember the details of this more than any other story that especially in this book.
See, I didn't, and I kind of wish that we got a little bit more of a resolution there, but I really like this chunk.
Because this opens with Japan that same night, and I was like,
right,
that same night as what exactly?
I remember pretty quickly. As soon as like, you can see Metamorpho at the bottom of the page, and as soon as you turn and you get the 2-page layout where Jefferson's dragging him, I was like, oh yeah, it was the building, and like, you know, they're up against I don't know if we knew last part that it was the mother-in-law, effectively, you know, Katana's mother-in-law.
No, and so that's where I'm trying to, you know, I wish so. I know Talking Superman, friend of the show, is a big Katana fan. So if he could let us know if this is all new stuff or if this is, you know, this is from her origin, it really adds a layer to Katana.
Friend of the show and world's biggest Superman 4 A Quest for Peace defender.
Yes. True. I
can't imagine there's much competition for that title.
No.
Nuclear Man. Not Nuclear Man. Nuclear Man. Anyway.
Hey, people like what they like, so...
Anyway, so... every time I make fun of him for on the show, I get a tweet somewhere during the week whenever he hears it. And I enjoy it. So yeah, Katana's with her mother-in-law. And basically the gist of this is that her mother-in-law is like, okay, my son's soul is no longer in the sword. And she basically suspects that the soul pissed off because Katana's got feelings for Jefferson. And she's pissed about this. You know.
No, I don't want to argue ancient Japanese magic with someone that apparently is a practitioner of ancient Japanese magic.
Yes, and looks ancient.
Yeah, we don't know if that's why. Maybe the soul has found, like, you know, I don't know much about Soul Taker, but, you know, maybe it's, you know, his soul doesn't need to be in the sword anymore. We don't know.
Or,
you know?
Hear me out. Maybe she's right.
Yeah?
Like, honestly, I feel like that would be more interesting to me, is that he, hypothetically here, has made the choice to not be in the sword, to, like... Like he's chosen to move on. It's like, hey, you found someone new. You don't need me anymore.
Yeah,
like,
that's what
not in a malicious way.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe this is actually more of a the soul's moved on to let her move on kind of thing. Like, it's more of a positive thing. Yeah. So we'll see where they go with it. There's only one part left. I did like the visual of Black Lightning using Metamorpho as like a moth-winged kind of flying device.
I like the choice to be like, yeah, I was gonna say butterfly, but moth, so you know, that's all wing as opposed to birds.
Yeah. It was just a neat touch. And you know, almost immediately we're at the cliffhanger where they're fighting, you know, the mother-in-law's army, because they're coming for Katana. Metamorpho duplicates to take them on. And it's a nice page, that last page where you've got the symmetry of like the lightning coming from Black Lightning's kick to the fire coming from the other dude's kick, and it looks good.
It's very Street Fighter to me.
I can see that.
I did think it ended a bit abruptly. Not necessarily this particular page, and there's a final last page. Just I felt all of a sudden, oh, I'm at the end now. I didn't build up to the end.
The first part did that as well, so I guess it's maybe just the flaw of this 3-part story is that I assume the last part's going to feel a bit more final because it's the last one. But
I would hope so. Yeah. It feels like maybe they're like artificially having to split up an issue that maybe they had it written or more or less in mind for like one oversized issue, like an annual size, whatever, and they've kind of got to artificially add in these cliffhangers. I wouldn't surprise, because obviously the first and last story are full-sized issues, so they effectively could have just been planned miniseries that became part of this book. But it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the stuff in the middle stuff that we're getting is repackaged things that were maybe intended for other
formats in some way, at least for the first little while, and then maybe they'll do specific stuff for it.
It's kind of like if you listen to previously, me and Pete have been reading Justice League Power Rangers by Tom Taylor and Stephen Byrne,
Mhm.
and we were speculating that may have been like just a straight to graphic novel originally, because it has some really strange issue cut-off points where it's just like, this is the end of the issue now.
Yeah, because usually, I mean, I always want the covers to be there in the trades when I read things, because I think it's good chapter breaks. I like having the covers there also just for, preserving the experience of seeing the cover, because the covers are good usually, right? And if they're not good, I want to see that they're not good. I want to have that opinion. But usually, even when they're not, you can usually kind of still tell roughly when you're at a final page. I was struggling. Like when I was reading Justice League Power Rangers, I accidentally read like half of the next issue because I didn't realize that I'd ended the issue yet. Because it just didn't have that big final. I
think it was the end of issue 3 came about 4 pages after what you would think was the final page.
Yeah, if you were just reading it blind, yeah.
It was bizarre, and again, like the issues was good. Still, it's Tom Taylor and Stephen Byrne. What do you expect? But just weirdly paced in terms of single issues.
Yeah. So yeah, there's not a whole lot to add about the Outsiders thing. Obviously, the main beat is the thing about the soul leaving the sword, but other than that, just some fun.
It's solid.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about Katana is I like the idea that we don't know if her husband's soul is actually in the sword or if that's just grief.
It's always been her belief, and that's kind of what we've had to go on.
Right. So the fact like the mother-in-law shows up here and it's almost like this thing where it's in fact in there, So I hope there's a twist. Yeah. I kind of hope there's a twist on it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things that can always be left up to the reader if it's there or not.
Yeah. For me, the biggest problem with this story, beyond just me forgetting the first part a lot, which I am holding against it a little bit because I don't with everything else we read. I did forget this more than anything else. Is the art, which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think the art's bad. It's perfectly acceptable. But coming off the Future State 2 issues we had of this, or whatever it was part of in Future State, which was the same writer, but the art was just so much better. This kind of still feels like a bit of a step down. It's as part of the quote-unquote same story.
Sure, I don't mind this art, though. I think
I don't mind it.
Fits the story. But, if they were trying to tell the story they were telling in Future State with this art, then yeah. But Max Dunbar, the art here, it's very cartoony in a good way. Like it reminds me of Bruce Timm style almost.
It's why I don't want to say it's bad art, because I don't think it is. Yeah. It, at least for me, feels like it's not as good as what we had before.
Yeah. But I mean, that Future State 2-parter, had it's effectively like Katana doing John Wick style sequences through entire buildings. So
spectacular.
So the art was obviously very geared to be able to achieve that. It's just different. So, but anywho, we giving the Outsiders story, Matt?
It was an 8.
Connor?
Let's give it a 7.
Yeah, maybe 8. Just give it the 7, I think, as well. Yeah, that's good. And then the final story, of course, is the Grifter story. It gives us a sense of... We do have a flashback again, because we had the flashback last issue of Grifter and his brother. And the super villains, Mr. Freeze was there, all that stuff. And we get a flashback to him waking up in the hospital, finding out his brother's dead. This is seemingly the first time he ever met Lucius.
Yep.
I'm not sure I'm a big fan of how much this ties his origin to Lucius and, Bruce Wayne in general.
I'm gonna say I disagree with that, because I do like it, because now that makes him like, why would Lucius trust this mercenary so much, right? And it's because he had a hand in creating him. It's like,
I get that. I think for me, it just feels more like we have to. I can feel the editorial saying we need to integrate him into the DC universe better this time around.
Right, but I'm fine with like the whole Halo thing coming out of Wayne Tech Enterprises, than some whatever Wildstorm version it was. It takes a Wildstorm concept and makes it uniquely DC, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think I actually just disagree with Connor here, and I like that it ties in more to DC continuity. I guess it makes you feel.
That's fair. I'm not saying he needs to be like 100% separate. This is the wild stuff. I don't have any attachment to that.
Right.
I could feel the editorial hand going, we need to try and do this better this time around, as opposed to when they tried in the New 52.
And I would say it's better.
I can be wrong.
But yeah, I feel like they executed it better here, just because I read that Team 7 book that they tried to.
It was terrible. Yeah, I mean,
throw Deathstroke and Dinah and her husband. What was his name? Something Lance, and it was
Mr. Lance.
It was ungood. Huh?
Mr. Lance.
Yeah. But anyways, but Grifter was there too, and it's just like, I don't know. But here, I do like that they saved him for whatever reason with this experimental technology, and now this is what's going to lead to him becoming Grifter. And so there's always like he feels indebted to Lucius, hence why he goes and tracks down his son for him, or he works as a bodyguard for him when he's asked. And it adds another layer.
When we jump back to the present day stuff, obviously they're just hit by this garbage truck or whatever it is, and there's a tanker. So I want to say it's a cement mixer.
It's like a cement truck.
Yeah, it was like a cement mixer. But Grifter's like, stay in the car while I go deal with these assassins, and we get some action. There's an axe involved. It's kind of fun. The art's pretty good. Because I think the guy's face when like he's swinging the axe, but he gets kind of like the gun fired in his face. Like I think there's a nice expressive kind of just wacky action sort of vibe that it's going for that I like. My favorite thing of this whole section though is actually kind of these sort of little twists that an ambulance shows up after Lucius has already been put in an ambulance, and it turns out the first ambulance was a fake because it's just more assassins. And I think when it cut from the realization from Grifter of that to Lucius like sort of realizing it and being tied in the stretcher and being like just yelling for help, like I thought this was darkly kind of funny. Like I got kind of a chuckle out of this little moment with him yelling in the ambulance, and then obviously immediately
I need to read.
I like as well, like as he's yelling for help, the driver's looking around going, no one is coming to help you, and you can see Grifter in front of him.
Coming through the windshield right there, and then he launches it from the motorcycle. But I was saying, Rosenberg doing this, I need to go check out Hawkeye Freefall, just because I've heard it.
Really good, and Schmidt, yes.
Yeah, it plays with the dark comedy a bit more with Clint. Like it's not so much Clint the loser that I love from the faction stuff, but
this is Clint high functioning sociopath.
Yes, and I feel it's Grifter. There's a lot of crossover there here, So,
not too far away.
Like Pete said, it's darkly funny that they put him in a fake ambulance, and he comes and just crashes through it, I think John Wick style.
I think it speaks to what the vibe and tone of the book is that it doesn't play it as a sort of dark thing where Lucius is really in danger. It plays it as a fun thing. We get to laugh at him sort of panicking a little bit because we know he's about to be saved. And it kind of makes it okay in that sense.
The voice in his ear going, "Oh, you effed up," and it's with that emphasis as well, like on those words, and you can see that in the lettering. It is played for laughs.
It sets you. It puts you into going into that page with that tone in mind. You don't go into it in a sense of worry. So that's good. And he's at the hospital. There's a joke with him like taking all the painkillers immediately. Don't do it at home, kids.
Take one every 8 hours or whatever. He takes the whole, like just chugs the bottle.
Anything else?
So this woman shows up to talk to him, and he kind of tries to flirt a little bit. There's a little bit of back and forth, and it turns out she's actually kind of his boss. She works for Lucius. And now Grifter kind of reports to her. So we have this introduction, and she feels what's her name here? Chance Adibi. Her name's right at the end of the scene, which is why it took me a while to find it.
Yep.
But so introduce this new character. I do actually. My favorite part of this scene though is where Lucius kind of comes in and sort of gives him shit for like being inappropriate because he's kind of flirting with her, and Grifter tries to say, "Oh, hey, the doctor said I might be disorientated from this," and then the next panel is just the doctor, who we've not seen for a few panels. He's just been kind of in the background, and the doctor just looks over his shoulder and goes, "No, I didn't."
Yeah,
he's like, Come on, man. Whatever happened to attorney-client privilege?
Well, this is the thing. Like, I don't really care about Grifter, but Rosenberg is doing a really good job of just making me like this character as the star of like this action story that just happens to be taking place in Gotham.
Yeah, so like I know like there's that saying that there's no bad characters, just bad writers, right? Like, but there's some characters I just won't ever really care about. However, I gotta give DC credit here for like between Jason Todd and Grifter, two characters I was like, I'll check this out, but like I'm not gonna. These are the two stories I'm coming back for,
Well,
right?
This is the thing. What did they do? They gave it to Zarsky and Rosenberg. That's how they did this. They just gave it to two good
I think
writers.
it's interesting that this book is headlined. I don't want to say headline because even though this is the last story, it's the bookends. They're the two full-length issues,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
So headlined by the two traditionally Marvel writers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like this is the playground for those Marvel writers, and then we'll get some other stuff to fill it out.
I mean, I don't want to say it's a proving ground because I'm sure they know that these two can write, but it does kind of feel like a weird way that this could lead to them taking on more prominent work at DC in the future.
Yeah.
This is kind of their their
definitely
proving
hope so.
ground. Yeah.
Especially Zdowski, and that is not to knock Rosenberg because I'm enjoying this. I really enjoyed Hawkeye Freefall, but
I'm not just saying this because it's another Archer, but I do from this story get the idea that Rosenberg would probably be quite good in a Green Arrow book.
he has the same sort of banter as Grifter here does, especially what we're talking about in this final scene. I think Ollie has a very similar banter style.
I could see that. Zarsky, like any Bat character, really. I mean, he's already doing a Bat character, but like,
Stars
I mean-
can write anything, and I will read it.
They're giving him a Justice League book, like not a
Which
proper book. It's a digital
There are
first, but
reports based off of a certain site that I don't want to give too much credit to.
yeah.
That is no longer digital first, and we will find out in the next lot of solicits that it's been moved.
ooh.
Yes, that's another one because we spoke about a week or two ago, I think, of some other books that moved.
Yeah,
So yeah,
intriguing.
maybe
Intriguing.
trouble afoot on the digital front thanks to some retailers.
Yeah. So then Grifter meets up with the Toy Man in the rain.
Mhm.
He's got his trench coat on. It's all very shady. And bizarrely, we're just talking about Red Hood's the other headline in the story. Red Hood shows up in this when they're having this meeting. They mentions that he sucks, which I thought was amusing because Red Hood. As much as I'm enjoying the main Red Hood story, my general
so fun.
opinion.
That's kind of our equivalent of Aquaman sucks,
Yes.
which is like that's the general populist one, right? It's
Yeah.
like, Aquaman just talks to fish. Who cares?
Well,
Whereas I don't think any of us have that opinion about Aquaman, but Red Hood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Red
I
Hood.
just, here's the difference, though. I don't remember the Zdarsky Red Hood carrying around the stupid crowbar. So I saw that here, and it triggered the bad feelings. Just take away the crowbar, and that's a cool scene with him, standing there like Batman almost. The lightning strike
Yeah.
behind him.
It's very the animated series opening,
Yeah.
especially the long shot where they're looking up at him standing up on the building.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picturing it from the opening titles, the animated series, where the lightning
Yeah.
flashes.
Yeah, I mean, he's not there for Grifter. He tells Grifter to stay out of it. He's looking for Toy Man. But of course, there's a fight takes place. There's a kerfuffle. But
It's a comic after all.
There's a comic book. But Nora Freeze is brought up
Yeah.
during
That's
this.
favorite cold villain.
Yes. Because it got him to
Number
the 8.
2.
Yes. But basically, like Grifter's like, I don't even know who that is. Who the hell's Nora Freeze? Because obviously he did meet her last issue. We saw that, but I do believe that he didn't know her name. I don't think that was it was ever properly introduced. So, like, obviously we're setting up because that was the big cliffhanger last. That was the random cliffhanger last issue. Was that Nora Freeze has turned up dead? Okay. And Mr. Freeze is just getting groceries.
That's funny.
Anyway, so the last page of this is that Red Hood wakes up after this fight because he gets knocked out. Toy Man's lying there with a bullet hole in his chest, so he's dead. And there's a post-it note stuck on Red Hood's face that says, "Borrowed your gun plus $100, returned the gun, kept the money. XOXO, Superman signed it.
You gotta say that. I read this at work and I started laughing like a maniac. And someone asked me why I was laughing. I'm like, I can't explain it. But it was that image right there.
Yeah. So obviously there's a bit of a mystery as to who actually shot Toyman, right? Because that's not something that we see in the scene.
We're assuming it's not Grifter.
Yes. And we're also assuming it's not Superman, despite what the note says.
And I think we should also assume it's not Red Hood. Although we can't be sure of that.
Yes. But I know I got to the end of this issue. I got to this page and I was like, man, they're turning Superman dark. He's like stealing money and like shooting people in the chest
and borrowing guns.
I know.
Maybe it's John Kent.
Times have gotten rough. Times have gotten rough in the House of L.
No, it's Henry Cavill's Superman. 100%.
Funding the Snyder Cut broke him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a fun story. Like, you know, the Grifter story is proving to be entertaining, and I'm enjoying it. And it's one of the two main selling points of getting this anthology right now. So
I would say, given the price, is fine. There are two full-length stories that I enjoy, which gets me my equivalent in dollars to buy in just 2 issues. And then the extra bits, I either enjoy them or I don't. It kind of doesn't matter at that point. It's just their kind of extra fluff.
Yeah. So yeah, as long as those 2 full-sized stories keep delivering, there'll be no much reason to complain. Matt, what are you giving Urban Legends issue? Well, actually, what are you giving the Red Hood story? Or sorry, the Grifter story.
The Red Hood is the Grifter issue and 8.5.
Okay, go on.
I'll agree with the 8.5.
No, I'll just go with straight 8. It's really good. So Urban Legends 2 as a whole, Matt.
I'm gonna give it an 8, despite the Batgirl story, because I did like the art, but the story itself was so weird. But the other 3 stories are really, really good. So, you know, again, like you guys said, it's hard to be mad at the price point, but you know, checking out the comic book shop, like I can be mad at myself. You know.
Yeah. Car.
Yeah, I'm not too mad at the price point, because if this was a separate Red Hood book and a separate Grifter book, I'd have bought both of those anyway, based on this particular quality, not just in general. But these particular stories I would have done.
Yeah, and you would have tried them no matter what because of the writers that were involved.
Exactly. Yeah, because there was talent attached that I like. Overall, I'm going to give this issue an 8 because I think the Outsiders one drags it down a little bit for me. Grifter's pretty high here, so yeah, pretty around that.
Yeah, I'm giving it an 8 too. Obviously, the Oracle one was DOA for me, but really liked the first and last. Outsiders is solid, fun. So, but it's hard to follow. I mean, it's funny. There was always a risk when they announced like an $8 like recurring book like this, but it having 2 full comic book sized issues inside that were both really solid consistently is proving to be.
If like when Age 1 ends first, then Grifter ends first.
Yeah.
If it's replaced by something that's not good, well, maybe even not good, but just that we don't like, that makes this book a lot tougher of a prospect.
You're relying on those middle 2 stories to keep it up a little bit. Yeah. All right. Rorschach issue 7, Tom King and Jorge Fornes on the art. Or how the kid and the old man, how they got the idea to try and kill Turley, and what a story it is.
This one got so weird. Look, this is usually my favorite book the week it comes out. I'm still processing my feelings on it because I read it this morning. It's always the last thing I read, but I had a busy week. So I read it when I woke up this morning, which maybe was a mistake. But yeah, I was not ready for the direction this was going in.
Yeah, so we ended last issue with the investigator coming to this house where the letters came from that were dropped off. And someone dressed in a Rorschach mask opens the door, and that's where we start here. And Officer Benedict and Mike's going, Matt. And he comes in, pacing's very good, and they are here as well. And he starts talking to him, saying it's not his letters, and he describes what brought him here, how he met Myerson the first time. We see he's got like a pirate painting on his wall, all these things, and he tells this story. So the guy who lived here, this was a comic book writer who did other stories and was friends with Myerson, and talks about how after he stopped being a comic book writer, he became someone who was kind of obsessed with UFOs and stuff like that, and deciphering things and conspiracies and whatnot. And it basically says that he believed he could hear, was it his daughter, I think?
Yeah.
So he believed that he could hear and communicate with the dead, almost like a seance, but instead a bit more of like a technology style version of it, where
so this is a real thing. So we watched enough ghost shows and stuff, and I listened to enough paranormal. The EVP is a thing people do, and it never works for me. Like, I never hear what they claim to be listening to, but like, this is a thing that people do use. But you're right, it is like an electronic seance, and I guess that's the best way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, to put it simple, it's like an old style tape recorder. You press record, you ask the potential spirit a question, and you just let them, give them some time to answer, and then you listen back to the tape, and it's just it's just white noise, but people will claim possibly to hear something in there. And this writer invited the character, because we don't know who this character in the mask is. We see him as a young man here, but it's very intentionally not told to us yet who this is.
Right.
And he's here as a young man before he's done anything in his life. We find out later, of course, that he became a comic book writer himself, and he had one big book, sometime later. But he's here. He's been invited along with Myerson, who at this time is maybe more middle-aged than an old man. And they're here for this, and they have this kind of seance style thing where this guy's saying, "Hey, this is happening. Like, I can speak to my daughter," and they kind of dismiss it a little bit. Like they think he's a little bit crazy as they're leaving. And this young man, whoever this guy is in the Rorschach mask, says that he never really seen him that much again. He sent him a letter after his own comic book came out asking for his thoughts, but he didn't seem to like it very much, and that was kind of the extent of their interaction, until one day when he showed up at the door dressed as Rorschach with the kid, with Laura, and we see what this guy looks like now. Presumably he's got like a white beard, he's got a bald head, and he invites them in, and they're at first he's scared. He's like, you're gonna kill me. No, we're not gonna kill you, but we like a hot drink, kind of thing.
It's raining, we should say too.
It's raining, yeah. And they come in and they want to use this tape recorder again. Myerson's remembered this. He wants to do this, and he wants to listen to the static. And then this is where it gets a little bit crazy, because he mentions that he believes that Dr. Manhattan, like whatever was heard that day, was actually Dr. Manhattan sending a message back through time to be heard on this tape recorder.
Yeah.
So
each person, as they tell the story, hears something different, right?
Yes.
Which speaks to the power of suggestion in the mind and all that stuff.
And I love these.
At this point in the story, I don't know exactly what to believe.
Yeah, I love this page for the record. I love, Manhattan, like he's on. And this is obviously just his version of events, but he's telling Manhattan's on Mars, and he holds up his arm and he fires a beam, and we see the beam sort of go to the Earth and then like land in the house and into the tape recorder on the day that they did this years ago.
Right.
And the idea is that over the years, Myerson's been listening to this, and over time and time, because we see him sort of age. Like there's like a series of panels where he's listening to the static, and I will say I'm a little mad at this book because it was making me look at these like letters representing the static to see if I could see anything like in the text.
Me too.
I was like, is there any hidden messages in there? Can I make out any words? And and Myerson says that Will is the mask and this is my face. Very Batman-esque, Bruce Wayne is the mask, this is kind of thing. So this man clicks the tape, they record, they listen, they play it back, and he explains that once the assassination attempt happened, he sought out who was investigating. He went to the apartment where Myerson lived. He found out that this investigator was there. He found him at the hotel, left the letters to sort of open a line of dialogue, and so we don't know why he's in a Rorschach mask, right? This is the thing.
No.
In the entire backstory, there's not really anything built into him being dressed like Rorschach. But he talks about how he put his book out in 1985, and some of the things that he's talking about here is that his book was a very serious take on pirates. So, and we've talked about, whenever you talk about Watchmen, you talk about how the pirates are kind of this world's version of superheroes. They're very popular, and he talks about how, when I was a kid, I loved Pontius Pirate, but when I grew up, I wanted to do my own more realistic, dark, not silly version.
Right.
And he's talking about that, and it came out, and then it was only days, weeks later that the New York squid attack happened. Because that's the other thing, is that when he's talking about Manhattan and he's talking about everything, they're under the belief still that the squid was a real thing, and they don't know it came from Manhattan himself.
From Ozymandias.
Yes. Or from Ozymandias, sorry, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because they say here that when you go back to those, is that we never understood the power of the squid. Why did the squid succeed? Why did Manhattan stop them? The answer was simple. He couldn't. They were more powerful than he even was. Can you imagine? And again, that ties into their fear of the squids coming back, the whole series and all that, right? So you've got this guy talking about how he released this comic book in the 80s. There was a serious version of the fun pirate characters that existed for so long. And then he regretted it because the whole point of the pirates was to inspire children and to see things. Mm-hmm. And, you're getting all this. And then, of course, you finally... I mean, maybe it's actually before this you get the name. It is. You've been holding it from the viewers and listeners.
I've been holding it because out of nowhere in the middle of this issue, they mentioned that this comic book writer is named Frank Miller. And I was like, wait, what?
And it is Frank Miller. Like,
when you guys kind of teased this at the start of the show, I was like, I just need to go and read what the hell happened in this issue.
Yes.
So I read the cliff notes of this Frank Miller bit, and I'm like, what the shit?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm like, I don't know if that's me missing context because I read the cliff notes.
No, because
it's just what the shit.
No. Because they go to him and
it's what the shit in the terms that it's Frank Miller. Everything that the story is doing though makes complete sense and thematically fits into the context of everything that's going on.
Yes.
It's just instead of like having a fake thing, they just said, you know what, we're just going to actually call him, because clearly this pirate book he made was the pirate version of Dark Knight Returns. That's what they're talking about.
Right. Because it was called the Dark Fife Returns.
Yes.
And that he was a flute playing pirate, and that was his whole thing, and he darkened him up and it became a huge hit. And when you look at the painting on his wall, it's essentially the Dark Knight Returns vibe. Where'd it go? Damn it.
It's earlier in the issue.
It's earlier in the issue. Yeah, it's got the lightning strike with the pirate standing on the one side with a field of bad pirates, you would assume. And so there's all this stuff, right? But then I started looking up the Otto Binder stuff too, because they talk about Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So which means that the concept of Captain Marvel lived in the world of Watchmen before, right? And that Otto Binder. So this stuff that King puts in here, I don't know about the EVP seances and stuff, all that, but Binder really did lose his daughter to a car accident, and it kind of broke him, and that was the end of things. So the fact that King's going back and adding real life stuff into this Watchmen book, sequel book, you could say, that's he's almost breaking down comic history through the concept of breaking down comic history.
And yeah, I mean, Watchmen was always, this, take on superheroes and comic books to a point anyway. So it's very sort of in theme to do that. And the big thing, I guess, the one thing that explains why Frank Miller is now wearing a Rorschach mask in this like present day part of the book is, when at the end of the issue he plays the tape for the investigator, and now he's saying you can hear it right clear as day, God talking, and the final panel is him saying, it says kill Turley. So
it's God Alan Moore.
And to me, what all this is that a lot of this book has been about how conspiracies form, how people who need to fixate on something kind of form those ideas and then spread them and believe in them so devoutly. And this is showing to me that the kid and Myerson kind of like fed into each other, and it kind of spread to Frank Miller, where after all this he's starting to really buy into this too. And I'm talking about the character Frank Miller and this, not actual Frank Miller, although I mean maybe he's crazy. I have no idea. But
there are some not so good things.
I do know that King is actually fairly good friends with Frank Miller. So this will not be like a shock to him to find himself in this
I have no doubt that this was cleared with Miller before they put this in here. No doubt.
Even if whatever it does with him is theoretically damning to him, I'm sure it was done with his blessing.
Yeah, I think you have because it is worth mentioning. When we talk about the revolution of comic books in the 80s and like things getting more dark and more nuanced, Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns are the two things that always come up. So to sort of involve a Frank Miller, I mean,
you had no chance to get Alan Moore's permission, did you?
Well, I'd say allegory, but I mean, is it an allegory at this point when he's just called Frank Miller?
No, but it kind of is, because he uses, and I don't know if Miller has said this though, where he says that he feels like Dark Fife Returns was almost a mistake, because then it perverted the idea of what the pirates were, right? That they were meant to create this hope and aspirational aspect for kids.
Basically what he says, he regrets that it's influenced comic books in the way it has, because now everything's trying to be this darker thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does feel that way. In fact, I'm pretty sure Alan Moore feels that way in the things that he has said when he used to speak.
Well, Alan Moore just doesn't, and I don't want to piss off the Dark Wizard, so if this gets to him, I'm not being disrespectful, right? But I just feel like Alan Moore just is upset about the world, right? Like,
he is sick of being asked the same questions over and over.
And I get it, but at the same time, you can't say that modern comics exist partially due to him. Like, he dragged them into that era with his Swamp Thing and even his DC work before Watchmen, So, and even his Superman stuff though wasn't like this dark, grim, gritty deconstruction. They were just really good Superman stories. His Green Lantern too. So like,
no, I mean, I think this is a case where these writers know exactly what they were doing, and it's a case we get with every medium. It's to a certain extent where their voices and what they did are so important in dragging the quality of writing and the way that we tell stories forward in the industry. But as with everything like that and with success, a lot of the industry take the wrong lessons as to why these things worked and why they were successful.
Do you think Moore has ever stood there and gone, "I am become death"?
I think so.
I think he says it every morning.
Felt that way, hasn't he?
Yeah. I think he says that himself in the mirror every morning when he gets up.
Yeah.
Before his pancakes.
If not, his beard definitely does.
I think he gets up, he looks in the mirror, he says that, he sacrifices his morning goat, and then he has his pancakes. That's his morning routine.
I've got like a weird thing that I don't know if this is true, but for some reason I feel like I've read he's vegan. So maybe he doesn't sacrifice goats. Maybe he, I don't know, sacrifices a plant-based alternative.
A shrub.
Yeah. I mean, it's just about the sacrifice, right? You're giving something up to a being greater than yourself.
Is there a being greater than Alan Moore?
Gary
in some people's eyes, Grant Morrison, but I'm not getting there.
Oh, you have inflamed the jewel.
Yeah. So, I am neutral in this. I enjoy the works of both.
There is going to be storms in the skies of England tonight, thanks to that comment.
I apologize in advance.
Well, however, to get us back on the comic itself. I think this is it's further playing with the ideas of how these ideas spread, and conspiracies and belief, and this idea that we all hear something different, and they're just listening to static, which, as far as we can tell, has nothing. Now, it is a comic book, so it could turn out there is something really there, but it doesn't seem like there is right now.
No, it's basically whatever they want it to be, right? Like,
yeah.
For Otto Binder, it was the voice of his dead daughter, right? And now for all these other people, it's basically what the kid wanted to hear and what Meyerson wanted to hear, and I still expect there to be some kind of twist.
I suppose the one interesting thing is that Meyerson, the kid, and now Miller all seem to hear the same thing on it, which maybe that's saying something about like-minded people and like how ideas spread, as because it's in the same way that he's now dressed as Rorschach. Like this is literally spread to someone else.
Right. Yeah, it was a doozy because just with King, and I was thinking about King's backlog of stuff of deconstruction, and you almost feel like that's kind of his take too of whatever Frank Miller's saying of the deconstruction is kind of taking this aspirational thing. So when you look about his Superman, which was what, Up in the Sky, it is all of that. It is about the idea of Superman being aspirational and going through the impossible to basically save this little girl.
And maybe that's, I don't know if it's getting super meta in this sense, but again, the idea of spreading of the idea is the idea of Rorschach spreading here, or the paranoia of Rorschach and that mission,
right?
Is that in some way representing this infection of comic books by we all have to be dark and serious now, and we can't have the more hopeful versions of things?
And I've had this since the cut came out earlier in the month or last month. Time has no meaning at this point. But when that came out, and then the stuff that's going on with Falcon and Winter Soldier,
I don't think I have ever been sure of anything in my life, because I don't think he's ever publicly said anything, because he's been hiding longer than this.
Right.
But I have never been sure that anything in my life that Alan Moore hates everything Zack Snyder's directed.
Oh, I'm sure.
He 100%.
Yeah.
And if anything, I would say, again, we're using Frank Miller in this comic in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's fair to say this is echoing the assumption of Moore's thoughts as well, if not outright what he's said in interviews in the past.
Right.
I think Snyder and his interpretation is the exact evil that they hate.
It's almost the most. It's the most potent. It's the most concentrated version of what they hate.
Yeah, it's far from the only problem.
Yeah.
It's far from the only example, but it is if not the most potent, it's the most widely known.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And that's the whole thing where I look about what kind of forecast was Tom King looking at where this was going to come out right at the time where this is kind of in the discussion in pop culture right now, because you got The Boys, you have the Snyder Cut, you have other things going on. I
think we've been building
weird.
This for quite a few years now, to be fair.
Yeah.
But he looked at that and went, "Hey, we're gonna pull this off in this story,"
I didn't mean that to put King down. I think that's that isn't a problem for him to have seen the trend and gone, right, I'm going to write a story with that. More just, I don't think he was like a super wizard telling the future. I think he looked at where things were going and kind of now it just seems more because there's more of it.
And there's the page where the regret really comes in. It's over pages of Pontius. It's just sort of like it's close up on black, and then it pulls out and it's his eye and it keeps pulling out. But it's like one of the old Pontius comics. But basically, it's where Miller's describing how a few weeks or a few months after his book came out that was praised, the squid thing happened, and there was footage in the news of all these bodies lying around with blood, and it's very the way he describes sounds like the painting we see in his wall earlier on,
right?
And it basically sounds like, and it's not so much that he feels responsible. It's not like this was inspired by his comic, but more the point that maybe superhero comics shouldn't reflect the darkness of the real world, because that's not, or in this case pirate, actually superhero, because I'm thinking of the real stuff, but maybe the pirate comic shouldn't reflect the darkness and the misery of the real world, because the point is to believe in hope and believe in something better. So, despite how dark this story is about these like crazy people who are trying to assassinate someone and the psychosis that gets them to that point, there's a weird, hopeful kind of message in the middle of all of it, kind of emerging, which is very impressive. So. I think this issue, especially with how we feel. I mean, I'm okay with dark versions of a lot of superheroes. I'm okay with a lot of the headier takes and things. And Tom King himself writes a lot of the headier takes in some of these characters.
Right.
But there's definitely a thing we have an issue with, I think, as a group of fans, where we recognize where they insist on doing characters certain ways now because they don't see the old ways as working. And they want to be more popular, or grittier, or edgier, and it comes off a certain way. And I think this issue is almost like tailor-made for our sensibilities and what it's poking at.
And I brought up Otto Binder with the Shazam stuff too, because when you think about Shazam, and that's all about a hopeful kid, right? And it's like, you know, it stands out in a world of superheroes even still, you know, nowadays. But, you know, you look back in the 50s, 60s, like, it was outselling Superman at certain points. That's why DC bought up Fawcett Comics. So, and, you know, I don't know if that was before or after, but, you know, he did the Captain Marvel stuff. They bring it up here. So, you know, yeah, there's a whole lot here that I was not expecting.
Yeah, I was reminded this week of the Grant Morrison quote where he talks about how if you show a kid a cartoon with singing crabs in it, the kid doesn't question. They know it's not real. They know crabs don't really sing, but they don't question why crabs are singing. But if you give an adult a work of fiction, they start questioning every little goddamn detail and why it works. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's not real. The story has a point. It doesn't have to work. And
this was in his it was in his Super Gods book. And when I was rereading it last year, I actually took a picture of that page, I believe, and posted it on Twitter. It's like, God damn it. Like, why can people not get this?
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Also, I should read his Super Gods book. It's real good.
But, yes, so this was a phenomenal issue that prodded at things. It made the mystery intriguing as well, but it, you know, in the delusion of believing Manhattan sent a message, like, to, you know, do this. I don't know. Everything about it is just so wild, but then you add in all this meta stuff, the comic book industry, the critique of superheroes and how they're portrayed now, and maybe the regret of like what the darkness has caused. But at the same time, I don't think any of us look at Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns in year one and say, oh, we wish they didn't exist, because they're also still some of the best stuff that's ever been written, and there's a lot of good things that have came from them in the way it advanced the industry. But there's so many things that have altered for the worse because of how people say now, oh, now we don't want to do lighter stories, we want to do more fun,
it's
hopeful
the sort of
stories.
Thing that is not exclusive to this medium. It happens in all creative endeavors. I talk about Blair Witch as an example all the time. In that, for a long time, I kind of despised Blair Witch because of what it led to with the boom of these cheap found footage movies. Because they were cheap to make, anyone could do it, and everyone did, and most of them were terrible. But that's not Blair Witch's fault. It was still good. No. And it's the same way here, where it's not Frank Miller's fault, it's not Alan Moore's fault that the rest of the industry misunderstood. Like, you know, they still made good works of art and should be applauded for that.
Yeah. Although that Blair Witch comparison, it always rubs me slightly wrong, because it really didn't start till after Paranormal Activity, all these cheap found footage movies.
I mean, because the fact that Blair Witch 2 was distinctively not found footage.
Because if you look at because that came out, the first one came out in '98. If you look at '99 through 2007, there's a lot of found footage in that time period. It's after Paranormal Activity that all of the found footage, like, and you know, not to sound like I'm saying I'm an expert or anything, but doing Screams After Midnight, me and Tim have suffered a lot of those found footage movies, so they're ingrained in my head where they came from.
The reason I'm giving Blair Witch the credit is it's better than Paranormal Activity. Simply put, because I mean, look,
it is. I mean, it is.
Me and you on previously, we just did. I mean, I say just, you know, relatively speaking recently in the scheme of Batman comics, we did year 1. And right afterwards, it jumps back to normal, like nothing's changed. There is a pretty hefty lag period between
That's
these
true.
seminal works and then the rest of the industry catching up.
Well, I mean, especially in the case of comic books, it's not like the writer who's doing the next issue of Batman. I mean, they're probably writing that at the same time Miller's writing year 1. They have no idea. I mean, maybe they have like a vague story because the editor said, "Oh, this is where Batman is going" or whatever, but they don't know what the impact's
But
going to be.
For a large part, those late 80s comics or mid to late 80s Batman comics, a lot of them are indistinguishable in terms of its presentation from early 70s comics.
Yeah. It's just the 90s where things really start to shift.
Yeah.
But
There's a good lag period.
that's just the time of inspiration and the time of influence to really play.
Dang. I wanted to prove Pete wrong, but he's absolutely right. When you look up found footage, there's not a lot, and then
No, he
Paranormal
is,
Activity comes out.
which is why I defended him via a different route of kind of there's a lag
Yes.
period.
Well, the only reason I dispute that in terms of the movies is that found footage movies are notoriously quick and cheap to make. So
Yes.
I would suggest that the financial success of Productivity is what forced everyone to go, "We can do this quick and cheap," because
that is fair.
the
Yeah.
turnaround in them is pretty quick. So
A matter of weeks in most cases.
I mean, just look at the kind of found footage. I mean, the laptop screen is just a subgenre of found footage.
Yeah,
But look-
Friend started that one.
yeah, look at Host last year. That was a movie that was set in the pandemic that came out in like what, it was like May, June, and it was already like it was entirely shot in the pandemic, and pandemic, you know,
Yep.
as far as the quarantine goes, started in March. So that gives you an
and they
idea.
stayed quarantined while they did it too. So
Yeah,
like the director even directed, because it started because Pete had me watch that one, and it started off of something that he had done as a joke to mess with his friends on Zoom, and then they made a movie out of it. So like
But it's just, you know, but I mean, regardless, just to get back to Rorschach to wrap this up, it's a wonderful issue, and I think it pokes at a lot of things, and I think this is my favorite current Tom King book, and I know that's saying a lot because Strange Adventures is great, but I think this is taking the top spot. Every time we talk about it, I end up liking it more than when I read it, and I like it a lot when I'm reading it.
I do that with most Tom King books, I think.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, I like them less if in the case of Heroes in Crisis.
Sure. Well, I mean,
we don't talk about that.
That's an outlier. That
It
is.
is.
That's an outlier.
We don't talk about that one.
Matt, what are you rating Rorschach 7?
I'm gonna give this a 9.
I'm gonna go 9.5.
There you go.
So there you go. So that'll take us out of the part of the show that we do our picks of the week. So we do favorite panel / moment, favorite art, favorite cover, and the top 5 books. So Matt, what was your panel / moment of the week?
It's gonna be from Rorschach. It's when Frank Miller shows up, because I really went, wait, what?
Very good, Connor.
That is fair. I mean, having not read the book, I did see those panels when I skimmed earlier the article, but I get that reaction. I'm actually going from Superman. My pick. It's the final page. It's the panel where it kind of reveals that no, that's not what he said. He said this, and it kind of timed back into this linguistic route, and it kind of paying off this almost offhand sentence earlier in the issue. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I think I'm also tempted to go with Rorschach, but I think I'm actually going to go with Urban Legend. I'm going to take Lucius yelling for help in the ambulance with Grifter coming towards it as the driver yells that there's no help coming. There's just a lot going on in that was making me laugh. So I'll give points for something a little bit different this week. Favorite cover, I will kick us off. I know you guys are going to gush about the Wonder Woman cover, the variant that is, which is good.
I haven't
don't
even looked yet.
I don't dispute it.
Out of my brain.
Superman variant's also good. But for me, it is between the main Rorschach cover, which is like a tape recorder with the eyes where the tape spindles usually are.
Actually.
And I also really like, surprise, surprise, the Matina variant for Urban Legends, which is half Grifter, half Red Hood, but it's that beautiful painted Matina style. Very nice. I think I'm going to go with Rorschach for the overall idea of what the cover is, because it's just a bit more distinct. But yeah, some good covers though this week. We go, Connor.
I'm just looking. I literally haven't even clicked on the full Wonder Woman one. I can just see the little thumbnail. I'm like, that's a Middleton one.
Yes.
I'm just seeing if anything can even compete with a Middleton Wonder Woman. And no, they can't. It's Middleton Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay, Matt.
Middleton Wonder Woman.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go. Easy peasy. All right. Best art of the week, Connor.
I'm gonna go with Wonder Woman actually. I think Travis Moore is doing a wonderful job.
Matt.
That's good. Wonder Woman's Travis Moore's good. I wanted to shout out Ryan Benjamin's Grifter. I like the art in that one a lot, but it's Fornes and Rorschach because it is so understated. Like that's not like these big, huge, like we've had these big moments before in the book, but this one is just like Pete said, there's a flow to those first couple pages that are very cinematic.
Yeah, it's
Does Fornes do his colors, or is it? For some reason, I feel like it might be Dave Stewart.
I don't have to.
I'm just wondering because I think Fornes' coloring work is very distinctive, and I don't know if it's him or if it's someone else.
Yeah, there's that pacing at the start. See when he's like walking into the house, like there's just like these panels of him like walking in and like going past, and then he's out of frame essentially. There's a pacing to the art in that book which is wonderful. Same again when the writer's listening to when Will is listening to the tape and he's growing older panel to panel, but he's listening to the static throughout the years. Like again, pacing is just exceptional.
Connor is correct. Dave Stewart does do the colors.
I thought so. Dave Stewart's colors are very distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, obviously very famous for most of the Hellboy work.
All right,
someone's here.
Matt, what's your top 5 books? Rank the books.
1 is going to be Rorschach. 2 is Wonder Woman. 3 is Urban Legends. 4 is Superman. 5 is Batman Detective, which pains me just because I don't want to put a Tom King book in at 5, but
a Tom King book, you say?
Damn it! I did it. A Tom Taylor book.
Connor.
Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman the Detective, Batman Urban Legends.
I am going to have Rorschach at number 1, obviously. I think then Batman Urban Legends, then Superman, then Batman the Detective, and not surprising that Wonder Woman's my last place on the list. And is cut from the pool. Ta-ta.
For shame.
I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics, though. Let's see. We got the Flash 769, so we'll see how that Wally story continues. We got Nightwing 79, so that's the most anticipated book, obviously. We have Justice League issue 60. We have Catwoman issue 30. That's also pretty anticipated. Superman Red and Blue issue 2 is out. Batman vs. Ra's al Ghul issue 6 is coming out. That's been going for like 2 years or something.
That's a thing.
Yeah. Batman Fortnite 0 Point issue 1. Good luck to anyone who wants to read that. Truth and Justice issue 3 is out. And then, of course, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You 109, because DC will keep pumping those out forever.
Would either of you like to guess when the first issue of Batman vs. Ra's al Ghul came out?
2017.
I'm going to guess...
I've got a date here.
I'm going to guess it was in the spring... No. I'll say the autumn of 2019.
Okay, Matt?
I'll say April 2017.
Okay, Pete is a lot closer. It is September 2019.
Damn.
Wait, am I right? I'm right then.
That is all, yes.
Yeah, I'm right. Hey.
You look so confused.
So, about Batman and Fortnite, right? Not that any of us are going to read it. But I think it's interesting that I saw in the ad when I was reading this week that if you're a kid that plays Fortnite, they've incentivized you to get all 6 issues if you want a special
They give you a code for skins. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm like, that's actually pretty genius on their part.
Interesting as well is because the original plans for this was it was being published internationally first, digitally, and then coming to the US later, and it wasn't going to be print. It was going to go straight to digital on the on DC Universe Infinite in the US, and you get a code just for reading through those 6 issues on Infinite. So I can't help but feel like this is an easy way for them to try and grab a few extra subscribers, people who will pay. Because in comparison, like it's $8 essentially if to flick through the 6 issues and get your skin.
Right.
That's actually quite cheap for a Fortnite skin.
Huh.
So, most of them are at least $10 to $20.
Oh, didn't you hear, Matt? This is how we gauge currency these days. How valuable is a Fortnite skin, and that's how. So,
Right.
so when you talk about anything else, you say this is worth 20 Fortnite skins. That's quite expensive.
This is student rules where everything is measured in how many pints is this.
I mean, I never did that, but sure.
You know, Fortnite skin is you know, a syllable off from being something completely different.
Look, my point was, I wonder how many people will sign up to DC Universe to get their skin. And then maybe their hope is some of them will go, well, I've got it now. I might as well read some stuff on it and
that's their
maybe
hope.
cultivate some younger fans.
Like, if you want your Fortnite skin, go do it, or Fort Skin Night. Is that what you're
They're
hoping
just
for,
gonna start
Matt?
calling them Fort Skins.
So yes. Anyway, so that's what's coming out next week. So look forward to that. Cara, would you like to update us on these teams for the tournament books?
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Let me find the tab. There we go. So the again, this is just the 8 that made it through. So this doesn't count the ones that were knocked out, because we will never know those apparently. Which, unsurprisingly, includes the JLQ, which got knocked out by Robbins.
Right.
That was pretty close though. We thought that might get rallied by the community, but hey.
Yeah. So Superman and Lois Ignition is Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing writing, with Vasco Georgiev on art. Suicide Squad 7, which I believe was the Harley Quinn 7 Soldiers mashup, is Rex Ogle writing, who I'm not familiar with at all, and Diogenes Neves on art, who I know a lot from Demon Knights. He did a lot of work on that. So interesting. We've got Blue Beetle Graduation Day. Josh Trujillo and is writing, and then Adrian Gutierrez on art. Jesse Quick Control, which is the one it's up against, is Stephanie Phillips, who is currently doing the Harley Quinn book now.
Yes, with art legend Rosmo, yes, Riley Rosmo.
Thankfully not on this book. It is David LaFente on this one, who I quite like. Lobo Animal Man Scorched Earth made it through, which is by Heath Corson writing and Scott Hepburn on art, which is against Robbins, which is written by Tim Seeley, because of course it is, because it's a Robin book, with Valdemar Rivas on art, who I don't recognize, but Tim Seeley, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We've got Green Lanterns Underworld on Fire, which is written by Sina Grace and art by Viken Marion. Sina Grace, I think, has been doing some backup stuff in Green Lantern recently.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Maybe in the Future State stuff, did backups.
I think so.
I want to say maybe the Jessica Cruz one. And then that is going up against Zatanna and the King of Nightmares by the Soska sisters and Vanessa Del Rey.
The Soska sisters?
Yes. They did that Black Widow book for Marvel, right? As well.
Yeah, they're the horror directors. That's where I know them from.
I know, but I mean, this isn't their first entry into comics. Kind of my point there.
They did the See No Evil with Kane, right?
He'll tell you that.
I'm asking Pete.
I'm back. What's that?
I said they did the See No Evil movie with Kane, right?
I think so. I don't remember them doing that.
Huh.
They did American Mary. They did some other things. I can't remember all of them, but yeah, they're horror directors. Who's next?
I like Vanessa Del Rey. That's all of them.
Who's doing the I don't know, the next next Green Lantern book? Are we going to get, like, you know, George Foreman in to a Green Lantern book?
I'm sorry, they did See No Evil 2.
There you go. Val Kilmer is going to come in and write a comic book. He'll write the new Robin.
You're laughing about this, but we've got the actress who did Dreamer doing the Dreamer story. We've got the.
I know. I wasn't expecting the Soska sisters out of nowhere from this tournament.
Yeah,
I know, but look,
I don't know.
This would have been a bigger shock
like
if they
Randy
hadn't done
Orton.
that Black Widow book like a couple of years ago.
Oh dear. All right, there you go. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. They are Tyler Hess and the Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. Not Stanley.
Stanley.
Not Stanley.
Stanley.
They are all $20 or more on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, but you can support us over there for as little as $1 per month and help keep the podcast coming along with all the content that MailFuzz TV produces. You can support us for free by simply hitting the like button and subscribing and all those things on YouTube. If you're on the audio podcast feed, you can rate us 5 stars on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. That helps us out a lot. Helps spread the show around. And you can also do that, of course, by sharing us on Twitter. Of course, you can find us on there at DC Comics Podcast and get some updates, the occasional random, poll or whatever. So we look forward to things through the social media channels. Yes. Of course, I'll just remind you once again that the top 50 results, obviously many voted in the top 50 DC characters of all time. We'll be recording that the day after next week's episode, so it'll be up within a couple of days after that. So look forward to that. I promised it'd be out in April, so it will be out because we're recording that on like the 25th, I think. So I'll make sure it's out in those next few days, so it's in April.
You got like 5 days to get it out. That's loads of time.
We'll see. It'll probably be quite quick. I imagine I'll probably expedite it just because I'm excited about putting that out there. So yeah, it's big beefy extra episode to celebrate hitting episode 250. So that's what's happening. Maybe we'll even go over 250 minutes. I wouldn't put it past us. But thank you very much. Don't worry, Connor. I'm not being serious. It won't be over 4.
I was trying to work out how long that is. I was like, hang on a second.
That's 4 hours 10 minutes, just in case you were.
Yeah.
We keep track.
I just got to that and I was like, wait a second.
But that is otherwise us. Is there anything else I usually say at the end? I don't think so. I think that's everything. So yeah, I'm surviving on very little sleep here, and I need to eat. So that's what's going to happen now. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.